We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live radio network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. My guest this morning is Dr. Hans Kugler, Ph.D., a Ph.D. in chemistry from Stony Brook. Dr. Kugler has written many important books. His first book, I believe, one of the early ones, was on anti-aging, which was published in 1971. One of the most influential thinkers in the field of wellness worldwide for the past 40 years. If there are 10 important thinkers, one of them is Dr. Hans Kugler, and Dr. Kugler is with us today in studio. Dr. Kugler, welcome to Here's to Your Health.
Well, thank you for having me back here, and I truly enjoy being here.
Thank you. It's an honor to have you here, and I know the viewers are just thrilled, as I am. Now, you, as a younger man, were influenced by a number of thinkers, including that of Emanuel Sheraskin.
Yes.
Dr. Emanuel Sheraskin.
Right. Professor Sheraskin, Alabama University School of Medicine, was my mentor for many years after I got my degree already. That means I was at Stony Brook getting my Ph.D. biochemistry, physiology, and then I started doing aging research at Roosevelt University in Chicago. And when I presented my very first data, Sheraskin came to me and he said, Hans, we are really thinking along the same lines. And basically what Sheraskin was saying is lifelong health. I mean, not just health for today or for tomorrow. Really, best possible health is achieved as a state of homeostasis by doing all these health practices correctly. And earlier people used to say, well, health practices, just health practices, nothing really special. No, it isn't, because nowadays we know with telomere research that good health practices are true anti-aging modalities. And my work with Sheraskin showed that lifelong health, optimum health, is synonymous with fitness, sexuality, best possible immune system, best possible overall health, slowest rate of aging, and so on and so on. So the more health practices we do correctly, the better is our overall bottom line state of health.
Right. And would you say that that statement just made is a statement that most scientists today would agree with, but they might not have agreed with it, say, in 1970?
Totally, absolutely, yes. But more and more people are coming around because aging research is the, what shall we say, the bottom line metabolic pathways, right? And that is just established routes. When you go in your body with different substances, carbohydrates, fats, protein, we know exactly what pathways they go and so on. And one of the big proofs along those lines actually comes from Davis University in Northern California, Professor Robert Lustig, a magnificent man, showing that you can actually Google it. Google sugar, the bitter truth. And he demonstrates there, I mean, pure science, right? That sugar and high fructose corn syrup and all that stuff is just the number one biggest problem that we have. And then we go down further the route. I mean, all the health practices.
Now, if I can make a comment. So your statement you just made about sugar, I think the majority of people today would agree with that. And once again, in 1970, most people would probably say, "Oh, that's just not true."
Yeah, sure. Because sugar is just sugar, and blood sugar is the most important part, to maintain your blood sugar. So if your blood sugar is a little bit low, you'll eat a little bit sugar. Oh no, it doesn't work this way.
Well, how does it work? So let's say some of the listeners today on Here's to Your Health have never heard that statement that sugar is not good for them. Can you tell us why sugar isn't good for us?
Okay.
Processed sugar now. In soda.
Right. Let's do a little math.
Okay.
Now, when your doctor measures your blood sugar level, between 90 and 110 is normal. So let's take 100. What does that 100 mean? 100 means there is 100 milligrams of glucose per deciliter per tenth of a liter. If there is a 100 per tenth of a liter, that then there's 1,000 milligrams per liter, and 1,000 milligrams is 1 gram, and we have about 4 to 6 liters in our body. So let's make it 5 as an average. So we have about 5 grams of sugar in our body, in the blood, to have it at a normal level.
I see.
Now you're dumping in there just 1 can of soda, sweetened sugar, right?
Yes.
And I'm totally in agreement with the New York mayor to limit all this stuff. It's just ridiculous. Okay, now 1 can of soda has how many calories? About 170, 180, right? Now there's 4 calories per gram of sugar.
Yes.
And the 170 divided by 4, so we wind up with approximately 45 grams of sugar that you're dumping into your body. That is about 10 times, nearly 10 times as much as in your entire body. That blood sugar will come up and your body will scream, "Are you crazy?" Because high glucose levels can actually kill brain cells, right? And so, I mean, maintaining the blood sugar normal is very important, right?
Yes.
So your body releases insulin and the blood sugar comes down. And if you do this again and again, it overdoes it. That leads to what we call the yo-yo syndrome. Right. And then the blood sugar comes down, and then you have that urge again for sweets. And it starts a chain reaction that is just downhill.
I see. And now, if the soda is such a bad idea for us, what is a good idea for us to snack on? Just what's some of the good ideas?
Natural things. Natural things. I mean, go to a health food store. I mean, you see dozens of things.
You mean I can eat cashews is good? And
anything, right? Walnuts. I eat walnuts, right? Whenever I go to the gym, I have a little bag of walnuts, or I take along, or anything along those lines, anything natural. And in order of, just very basic guidelines, we used to say that about 150 calories per day of sugar for women, and 200 for men. No, we've even lowered that now. And that again, Professor Lustig will confirm that. If you Google the sugar, the better truth, it's basically 100 calories for women, maybe 150 for men, right? So that is very, very little. And if you look at the foods, you will find there's so much sugar in everything. I mean, it's just terrible. But even worse.
Are we talking about? We're talking about the avoidance of processed sugar. But what if a person eats baked squash or sweet potatoes? Are those naturally occurring sugars good choices?
Yes, but if you actually measure the amount of sugar in foods, they are relatively little.
I see.
And because of all the fibers and what they're contained in, they're released relatively slowly.
I see.
Right? But that's only the starting point. The worst thing is high fructose corn syrup.
Right.
I mean, that is about a total disaster, right? And then somebody will say all these know-it-all ignoramuses from the drug industries and from the food industries. Well, fructose is just another natural sugar. No, it isn't, right? Because, again, if you look at the metabolic pathways, what happens to fructose in your body, you will recognize that only the liver can metabolize fructose. And when it does so, it immediately converts the fructose to fat, lipids, so the blood fats go up, right? In addition to this, it affects lots of enzymes like NOS. NOS is an extremely important enzyme. It's called nitric oxide synthetase. Now, nitric oxide is a very important molecule in our body that controls immune function, sexuality, you name it. I mean, Viagra works on that principle. Even so, there's much better things than that.
and certainly Viagra is widely used. People, I guess, want it or need it.
Right. And then there's other natural methods to bring nitric oxide in your blood level, to bring it up to normal. Yes. I mean, after the age of 40, it decreases tremendously. And simple extracts from plants, There's a product out, Neo 40, has been shown by Texas University researchers when combined with some B12 and so on, within about 25 minutes, you can use the saliva sticks, what the doctors have in the offices. You can show that nitric oxide increases, right?
Oh.
And that's a very important part. And so you start.
What's that product called?
Neo 40.
Neo 40.
Neo 40. And the website is neogenis.com. Not neogenesis. That's a different one, right?
Okay.
Neogenis.com. Also regulates blood pressure.
Mm-hmm.
In my case, blood pressure, because I really go a little bit maybe in overdrive sometimes, too much. Exercise, everything else. So my blood pressure is sometimes a little bit on the borderline, high line. Should I take drugs? No, I don't like to take drugs and so on. I started taking that after 2 weeks. I go by our health center, right? By the way, that's the same place where I do anti-aging fitness counseling and so on at the Health Integration Center in Torrance, right, with Dr. David Wong. Anyway, and I asked one of the nurses, I said, hey, take my blood pressure. She measures my blood pressure. Wow, that can't be. Do it again. 20 points drop within 2 weeks. It's amazing, the stuff.
A drop to what numbers? What were the numbers?
About 112 over 78 or 80.
Well, that's very good, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very good.
That's
Very good. Normally it was something like around 130, right? And it's very
And blood pressure, it's important that people control their blood pressure. And just in passing, what are the damaging foods that we consume that adversely affect that blood pressure besides the use of sugar?
Well, we go into lots of different health practices. I mean, it's anything from exercise to stress management. That's a very important part, right? Because also stress has been shown to be the strongest telomere shortening factor, right? And so you go into all different things. But junk food, no exercise, smoking cigarettes, high-fat diet, junk food that cause inflammation. And that's really the starting point. Every disease starts with inflammation. And so we want to focus on. And that's really another area where people very often ask me, says, gosh, with all these new products that are being discussed in supplements, which one should I take? I said, look at that in terms of what your problem is. If inflammation is your problem, you look at the inflammatory responses with the various products. And you can simplify things, right? And you can focus on, depending on your health problems, what you want to take. But it's not really that easy. So therefore, in my book, The Lifelong Health, Learn How to Control Your Genes to Stay Young with Age, we have supplement and exercise in a 2-stage level. Beginning, just the basics. And then, once you start this, I know people get turned on and they're feeling good. They want to do more. Then you can go to step number 2, to the higher level, And so give them a choice with everything, right?
And and again, how do we contact you at your center?
Well, it's in Health Integration Center in Torrance, right? 310-326-8625.
Is your phone number there?
That's the telephone number of the Health Integration Center,
In
Dr.
Torrance.
David Wong. Yeah,
David Wong. Okay.
Yeah, and mostly I'm there on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and maybe Fridays.
I see.
And so on, right? And we go through every step, looking at the various different health practices that all play a key role.
Mm-hmm.
And number one, recently, we were really surprised. Baylor Medical College, Mayo Clinic, the American College of Sports Medicine came in with a new requirement to define what as a medical disorder. Guess what? A lack of activity and exercise. They want this defined as a medical problem.
Mayo Clinic and Baylor wanted to let me have that once again. What did they want to find?
Mayo Clinic started it out,
Yeah.
but supported with a lot of the American College of Sports Medicine, literally everybody in the fitness field, right? And we know this is the number one problem, lack of exercise.
So the Mayo Clinic says that lack of exercise is a what kind of problem?
Should be classified as a medical problem.
That's interesting.
Oh, it is. It is totally, and it stirs up a lot of people. Like going
Yeah, it
back,
does, yeah.
yeah, going back to our longevity studies that we did at Roosevelt University in Chicago. We took animals and put them under all the wrong conditions, and another group under all the right conditions. Cancer-prone animals, very similar, percentage-wise, cancer, same as humans, and so on and so on. And the right conditions included exercising 3 times a week. Okay, we get a difference of 100% in average lifespan. That's
Really?
actually, Taraskin predicted that. Before I was doing that, Taraskin just said, okay, let me know a little bit more. So he asked me about some of the things, and he said, you're going to get about 100%. I said, whoa, 100%? He's going to be wrong about that one, right? No, he was absolutely right. 96% we got, right? And had 1 or 2 of the animals not died of, it probably would have been even more.
And that was really simply from the exercise 3 times a week.
Well,
that's how it
everything,
correlates.
everything.
Right.
I mean, the animals that were doing the wrong things, subjected to cigarette smoke, limited cages, junk food diet, tap water, drinking water, and so on.
Right.
The right animals, Purina rat chow is put supplement of animal chow together at my recommendations. Also exercise naturally, no cigarette smoke, carbon filtered drinking water, a little bit larger cages, less stress. And the key point here is, if we do all this without the exercise, everything drops to 50%. By 50%,
Okay.
exercise makes that much of a difference.
I would not have predicted that. That is impressive.
Mhm.
And it's
Yeah.
certainly, and you would think that exercise isn't controversial. You would think that, wouldn't you? I mean, it's not like recommending
Totally.
vitamin C, which people think, oh, vitamin C, forget that for some reason. But exercise, you would think everyone would be behind that, and yet I don't think that's the case.
Well, the problem starts in our high schools. When they run a little bit short of money, what do they cut? They cut the physical activity
and
programs.
music usually.
Right?
And art.
And look at the kids.
Right.
I mean, during the breaks, they guzzle down these horrifying foods.
Right.
Right? They get fat.
Right.
I mean, we have a percentage of fat children unsurpassed in history.
Right.
Right.
That we do. Everyone acknowledges that.
Yeah.
I guess some of us are just fighting about why those children are so heavy, and it's certainly lack of exercise and eating all that processed sugar and processed flour. It doesn't seem to be genetics. I always think everyone has great genetics. It's just their lifestyle ideas. They need to be trained in lifestyle.
Totally, totally. And we have also shown, and that was basically also Taraskin's sort of thinking behind it, right? If we take animals with bad genes and treat them correctly, I mean, with the right conditions, they will outlive animals with good genes treated badly. So it's all in your genes. The big excuse, I can't do anything about it, doesn't work.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And some of the, I'll use the word orthodox physicians use genes as an excuse to encourage passivity in their patients and to de-emphasize lifestyle. That's my take on it.
Totally.
And I guess because if you work with lifestyle, careful eating, no cigarette smoking, more exercise, those things benefit the patient, but they're not money makers for the physicians, unfortunately.
Exactly. I mean, that's what, in the alternative field, I mean, we're almost joking about it, like when I see a commercial on television from the drug companies, well, your health is our number one concern. I mean, I want to take my 45 and shoot that television, I mean, it's ridiculous, right?
I know, I think
what
the same,
a
yeah.
joke.
Right.
They're in it, but we can't really blame them.
Right.
I mean, they want to make money.
Sure.
They're responsible to their stockholders and everything else.
Sure.
So our healthcare today, as we see it, orthodox medicine, is keep them sick, coming, and paying.
Right.
You see the same thing that's happening in stem cell research, right? I mean, what we are doing, what I am doing with my stem cells, and you can see that on my website, drhanskugler.com, it is the simplest thing ever. It has been done in China. Animal experiments confirm it. It is the most basic approach. I take an egg cell, I remove the nucleus, I put yours in there, I trigger it to divide, I make stem cells this way, and I apply them. And now they're all going, oh yeah, but we have religious arguments there. Oh, come off it. The religious arguments were totally triggered and supported by the drug companies because they don't want to do
Really?
it. Oh, sure. That's quite
Oh,
obvious.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah,
Oh, my goodness.
it comes through. It's pretty clear, right? And then you ask the drug company people about, are you doing stem cell research? Oh yes, we're doing stem cell research. And yeah, what if you're a little bit more specific, you ask them like, what kind of stem cell research? Oh, induced pluripotent stem cells is a very important part. We find that if we take a retrovirus with a control gene attached to it, then we put it into your skin cells, blah, blah, blah. 5 years ago, I told them that that's the biggest nonsense there is. It's very good science, no question about it. But I'm a laboratory guy. I know what I can do in the laboratory.
Uh-huh.
And if I am being told that I should take 4 retroviruses, each with a control gene attached to it, to put it into one of your skin cells, and then that skin cell will behave like a stem cell. I mean, it's just total nonsense.
Okay.
6 years ago, I told them that. I mean, I had people resisting my thoughts. Nowadays, the documentation is there. When they do this, risk of tumors, cancer, genetic aberrations, and even rejection. You make a cell like this, you put it back in your body says, I don't know, you kill it, right? And I mean, it's right there. However, why do they continue that?
It can be patented.
Look at the dollar signs. They can say, well, yeah, we get an excellent results. You're sure we getting magnificent scientific findings out of this one. I mean, I have no problem with that. Professor Yamanaka from Japan, who originated that, I'm a real genius, right? But the key point here is, how long? Well, it's going to be a couple of more years until we can precisely define, blah, 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 and so on and so on. And in parentheses, unspoken, okay, you little sucker, in the meantime, we're going to keep you sick, coming and paying, and you bring us your money. My interpretation. Put me together with some people on a big discussion forum. I would love to argue with them over that. Well, actually, I've done it.
So you're saying that really they don't really want to advance the science. Is that it? They don't want to?
Totally. They want to keep you sick, coming, paying, and making money.
Well, Hans, for those of you just tuning in to Here's to Your Health, I'm your host, Josh Lane, and you're listening today on the LA Talk Live Radio Network. Dr. Hans Kugler is my guest this segment, and Dr. Kugler doesn't pull any punches, but in my profession, you know, then if there are 10 people most eminent, Dr. Kugler is one of them, and so I respect your opinion. You probably don't make any friends there, but...
Well, I have a lot of good friends. And Doc Tony, who's going to be one of my guests here.
Sure.
And Dr. Ron Klatz from A4M, the
Yes.
American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, worldhealth.net. I mean, we are in there because we believe in that.
Right.
That is the way to go. And those people are not afraid to say, God bless you.
Right. That's right. Okay, so Dr. Kugler, for the listeners who find your ideas, they make sense. Give me some basic material. Let's just do food. I'm always a very big food guy. What is it that people should try to focus on eating, and what should they really try not to eat? Give it to us.
Okay. In general, stay away from the sugars, read every label, and whatever contains high fructose corn syrup, dump it.
Okay, that seems fair. Yeah.
Okay. You can go to my book, Lifelong Health, Learn How to Control Your Genes to Stay Young with Age.
That's right. Lifelong Health. What was the second part?
Learn How to Control Your Genes to Stay Young with Age.
Okay.
You can go to my website, to our website, which is a nonprofit, antiagingforme, FORME.org. Antiagingforme.org. You can just click on the book cover. You have access to the first 22 pages. You can read what this is all about, right? And you take it from there, right? I mean, the most important part in respect to nutrition, I would say, is beyond eliminating sugar and high fructose corn syrup, is a regular food intake. Concentrate on quality foods. As long as go to a health food store, look around. Look at foods that are unprocessed and untouched by man, and you're going to be doing okay. Right?
Such as, in other words, I buy chicken leg or something. Is that it? I buy chicken leg and I actually cook that myself. So food's unprocessed. So I buy
Sure.
turkey, I buy chicken, I buy salmon,
Right.
I buy
Organic.
eggs. Buy organic.
Organic. Well, now salmon, you touched onto something. They're going to pull one over on us, right? The genetically
trying
modified
anyway, yeah.
salmon, right? Genetically modified foods. This is the most horrible thing what's being pulled over onto the American public, right? By all the big special interests. In Europe, these foods are either banned or they have to go through extreme tests to prove that they're safe.
Right.
And before Proposition 37 flunked in California,
Right.
well, very simply, $42 million put in to defeat it versus $1.2 million what the other people. I mean, it's
Right.
you know,
Yeah, money talks. Yeah, right.
Exactly.
It does.
2 weeks before that, out of Cayenne University in Paris, from a Professor Seralini, one of the top men in this field, he took animals, subject, and fed them genetically modified corn, both types, right? And guess what? You can see the pictures on my websites. Tumors. I mean, humongous tumors and cancers, organ malfunctions, and so on. Does anybody pay attention here? Oh, no. They just badmouth the guy. I mean, he's one of the top leading people. I mean, that's the general approach.
But the tumor formation in those test animals, that was reported. That was reported. It did make the mainstream media news. It really did.
Yeah,
there was rebuttal, but it did make the news. Then it fell from the news pretty quickly, but it did actually make the news.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, and again, so in the European Union, the advanced industrial nations of Europe, Germany, France, England, Sweden, Denmark. I mean, so genetically modified foods, are they banned outright?
No. I mean, but you really have to prove that they're safe.
Right.
Right? And
they're labeled.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, totally. See, here we don't even have the right to know what's in it.
I know, it doesn't make any sense. And I think the average American, the way you just stated it, would say, oh, no, I want to at least know what's in my food. I might think it's great, but I want to see it on the label. But they don't want to put it on a label. I think they're afraid that they'll lose market share.
Yeah. And then I jokingly say, maybe I should move to Russia. I have more freedoms over there, right?
That'd probably be a mistake, but okay, yeah. I want to go to Russia, really.
No, I didn't like these guys anyway.
No. No, you can move to Russia, just you can't get out, that's all. You know what I mean? You can go there, but you just can't get out, right?
Yeah, I have too many memories,
Yeah.
I was in the Air Force in West Germany, the West versus the East, et cetera, et cetera.
In the early 60s?
And yes. I mean, I was at an air base, half Americans, half Germans, and we flew American airplanes, and we had our confrontations with the other side pilots, and so on and so on. I mean, it was fun, And there was an airplane, the F-104, that actually contributed to the downfall of the East Bloc. That airplane was so hot in 1958-60, it would fly 2.2 Mach. 2.2 times the speed of sound. And we had people, pilots, dipping into East Germany overdressed and turning around, kicking in the afterburner, tickling the MiGs, and they could never catch us. And they were so neurotic about this thing.
Well, we had better technology. That helped to bring down the wall. I think it did, really.
That's right. That's right. And when the wall came down, we recognized how messed up East Germany was.
Absolutely.
A lot of people were joking, let's put the wall back up.
Right. And also in East Germany, there was also terrible problems with pollution. The Russians really managed to, destroy a lot of land.
Yes.
Yeah, they really did.
I mean, why should they care about it, right? And everything is government regulated.
Right.
Oh, what a mess.
Right. That was a mess.
Yeah.
That was a mess. Yeah. Well, let's talk about now. You mentioned eating fresh food. What about exercise? What exercises do you think the average man or woman, this is good for them?
Okay.
What can we do?
Okay. A very dear friend of mine, I'm lucky along those lines. When the health clubs used to be Holiday Spa here in California, et cetera, there was a company, Health and Tennis Corporation, and I was on the board with them, right, on the advisory board. Dr. Paul Ward, Olympic trainer, known as the godfather of the super circuit training, which now is used by every sports team. Football, basketball, you name it.
What's the regime called again? Super circuit?
Super circuit training.
Okay.
Right. No, in essence, what we're doing, instead of half an hour sitting on a bicycle for cardiovascular, I sit on a bicycle, I get my heart rate up, I have my hands on the handles, I get a reading what my heart rate is. I bring my heart rate up in the right range, takes 4 to 5 minutes. Then I go to the resistance machines, right? The exercise, different weight machines. And then if whatever I'm trying to achieve, to build muscle or to stay lean, most responses from women, oh, I don't want to become muscular like a man.
Right.
Well, if you do it right, you have no problem. I like to compare people to cars. A Jaguar, to me, this is a physically fit woman, right? Still a muscle car.
Yes.
A guy is a Hummer or a Chevy Avalanche when I'm driving.
Right, all right.
In total self-defense,
Okay,
right?
yes.
You know my accidents and so on, right? And so on. So anyway, but here's a very simple number. It's called the 1RM. For every weight stations that you include in your exercises, and it depends. I mean, use 2 for the top at least, 1 for the middle, 2 for the bottom, et cetera, et cetera. For every weight station, you determine what is the maximum you could do with 1 repetition. But you don't go all the way up there. You do more, and then you estimate. Now, you have that 1RM. Now, depending on if you want to just maintain what you have, no muscle gain, you will do the exercises with less than 50% of that 1RM. You do more repetitions at a reasonable speed. Now, you want to build muscle, you will do it with more than 50% of 1RM, fewer repetitions, and slow, and put your whole body in it, like butterfly and so on. Very simple. It's right there. Right? And then we go into detoxing, and then we go into stress management, and we go into the basic vitamin mineral supplementation, what you want to use, and then the advanced supplementation, the advanced exercise. We've got it right there. In the future, we can probably take 1 or 2 of those special areas and go into more detail.
I certainly will.
Yeah.
For those of you just tuning in today, you're listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live radio network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. My special guest this segment has been Dr. Hans Kugler, Ph.D. Dr. Hans Kugler, author of many important books, and Dr. Kugler is now a co-host on Here's to Your Health, and we'll be back later in the show interviewing Tony O'Donnell. So I'd like to thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health. We're going to take a very short break, and we'll be right back after these important messages.
Hands can do incredible things. They made every sound in this piece of music. But nothing compares to using them to help save a life. If an adult suddenly collapses, call 911, then push hard and fast in the center of their chest until help arrives. It's called hands-only CPR, and it's recommended by the American Heart Association. Visit handsonlycpr.org today. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Dr. Levi, your fitness doctor, making a personal house call, inviting you to join me Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific for my all-new show, The Dr. Levi Show. Join us as we discuss fitness, health, and well-being, including emotional and spiritual health. So don't forget to tune in to The Dr. Levi Show every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, exclusively on latalklive.com and the Talk Live Broadcast Network. You can also catch us on iTunes, Radio R&B, or watch us on Ustream.tv, or catch us on the Live 365 network, and now on Radio Flag and Stitcher Radio. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live radio network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. Today here with my co-host, Dr. Hans Kugler. And we have calling in from our office in Florida, Jill Dahne. Jill Dahne is the daughter of Mickey Dahne. Mickey Dahne, a well-known psychic, very popular for many years, and the daughter, Jill Dahne, is what is commonly called a psychic. And you might be thinking, well, on a wellness show, Joshua Lane, why is Jill Dahne a psychic on your show? Because I had the great fortune of using Jill Dahne more than 10 years ago, and the things that Jill Dahne told me were so remarkably accurate. And I thought, oh my goodness, how can someone have that kind of gift? And I don't know how they could, but I know Jill Dahne does have that gift. And Jill Dahne is with us, again, calling in from her office in Florida. Jill Dahne, are you there?
I am here, and I'm so glad you have a radio show.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you very much. And I'd like to thank you for being a guest on Here's to Your Health today on the LA Talk Live Radio Network. And for the listeners, you are a psychic. Is that a good term for what you do?
I call it an intuitive. I really don't like the word psychic, but it's called intuitive. You know, back when growing up, when I was younger, and I used to do radio at 6 years old, and then got put in Ripley's Believe It or Not, the book Ghost Wishes and ESP, and I'm in the ESP part with Edgar Casey and Sybil Leek. Wow. I predicted the Hanafi Muslim attack in Washington, D.C. to the time, to the date, and they used to call it ESP.
Yes. But you feel the term you prefer to use is the word intuitive. Intuitive,
seer, psychic. I never liked that word. Growing up, I never liked that word. Even though you are psychic, you know, and everyone has intuition. Some people don't use it, or they don't follow it. They second guess it. But like everyone in the world has intuition. Yeah.
I see. Let me just mention this to the listening audience. Once I was a client of yours, and then after the session was over, you said to me just in passing, "Oh, they're going to capture Saddam Hussein, and they're going to capture him alive." This was about, I think, maybe a year and a half, maybe even 2 years before because he had disappeared. And you just threw that out to me. You said, I was leaving your session, and you said, oh, they're going to capture Saddam Hussein, and they're going to capture him alive. And I thought, oh, okay, great. I never told anyone that because I thought, okay, but Jill told me this. And I was in California listening to the radio, and all of a sudden they announced that they had captured Saddam Hussein, had been, missing for more than a year. They couldn't find him, and they found him, and they captured him alive. And I thought to myself, well, see, that I knew that in advance. I was very proud of myself, actually.
I was on MSNBC with Rick Sanchez, and I'll never forget, it was, I think, around November time, the beginning of November, and he said to me, so Jill, where's Saddam Hussein? And I said to him, he's alive, and he kept telling me, no, he's dead, and I said, he's not dead, they're going to find him in a hole like a turtle right before Christmas. And he says, okay, if that happens, I'm going to bow down to you. I said, okay, get ready because I'm coming back on your show for my New Year predictions in December. And when I walked on his show, he bowed down and he said, Jill Dahne predicted the capture of Saddam Hussein on my show. It was so funny.
Right. Well, that's
and he was alive.
Well, that certainly is very specific. And so you are an intuitive. Now, are many of us also intuitives, but you simply have greater skill or greater ability? How does that work?
Well, like I said, I've been using my abilities since I was younger, and every time you use it more and more, I believe you get stronger. Mm-hmm. And I always tell people, I believe everyone has intuition. A lot of times someone says, I should not be in this relationship. Their intuition's telling them not to, but they still go into this, or a date. Mm-hmm. And they still go on that date, and it wasn't what they thought it was going to be, and their intuition was telling them not to go. Mm-hmm. Everyone has intuition. It's just some people are stronger than others, if I could say. And I've been using mine since I was 6 years old, predicting for the world and solving murder cases and medical intuitive. My life was on Lifetime television for all the marriages and relationships that I predicted, and, making world predictions as well, and working with major business industries. And just recently, 5 years ago, I told everybody that American Airlines would go bankrupt, and I see them merging with U.S. Air.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, buy stock. And I really never tell anyone to buy stock. The only time I ever did was back in 2002 when I told everyone to buy gold. And I think at that time it was at 200, and I said, sit on it, and now look where it is. And then I said, buy American Airlines stock, and I said it again last year. And look where it is now. It's they bought it for 34 cents. It's at $4 and I think 71 cents. My next prediction is medical marijuana. I believe that people buy in that and they sit on it, they're going to be making a lot of money. Also, five years ago, I was on a panel in New York City, which I go to New York every year, twice a year. And 5 years ago, I said for 2012 and 13, I said I see gay marriages getting passed, and everyone thought I was crazy. I also said that marijuana will get passed in many states, and look what's happening now. So that's called a prediction.
Yes.
And just like I said, I also said there'll be a lot of cures coming out for the end of 2012-13, and this was 5 years ago. And I said with HIV, diabetes, I said Parkinson's, stem cell would be coming out. I said cures for people that are for the eyes, cancer, and they just had a medical breakthrough with HIV with a child, and with 13 other people, if you saw that.
Yes.
And also something about diabetes happened, and something with cancer as well. So that's what I love. When everybody was talking about like doom and gloom for 2012, I kept saying, no, it's going to be an upcoming year. And I also said 5 years ago that there'll be manufacturing in the U.S. instead of using China, and that's what they're starting to do right now.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of good things are going to start happening with 2013 with the economy going to start rising, real estate's going to start rising, and people are going to get their jobs back. I also predicted on several shows a couple of years back that the post office would be closing on Saturdays, and they just announced a couple of months ago in August they're closing Saturdays.
Yes.
So that's what a prediction's about. When you make it in advance and it happens.
For those of you just tuning in to Here's to Your Health today on the LA Talk Live radio network, we're speaking with Jill Dahne, a gifted intuitive with a long history of successful predictions. Ms. Dahne, about the medical marijuana, are you saying that it'll be legalized in all 50 states? And are you offering a date on that?
Yes. I don't see it legalized in all 50 states. I believe at least 20 of them. And so far, I think they did it in 3 or 2 so far. But it will be, by the time the end of 2014 comes, you'll see it'll be in all 20, like majority of all the states. Not 50, because, some of the southern states, I don't see that happening.
Yes.
Just like when I said, in some of the southern states, I didn't see gay marriages, but I saw them in a lot of other states. And now some senator just came in because his son, his son just had a talk with him and said that he's gay, and now he changed his mind about gay marriages. And I believe everybody should be able to get married. I have a lot of gay clients, and they should be as happy as everyone else and get married and stay married. A lot of people have been with their partner, I guess, for 20 years, 15 years, and they should have the rights as well. And I made this prediction over 5 years ago, and it's happening now. So, but I do believe medical marijuana will get passed. And just as I said, also I believe in a couple of years you're going to start seeing gambling besides these Seminole casinos. I believe on the beach in Florida will get passed as well.
Really? You think that'll be done shortly, you think?
I believe that's going to be within the next couple of years.
Gambling in Florida. All righty. I'm not sure it's good for Florida, but I guess they'll certainly get it. Let me ask you a question, Jill Dahne, about how you work. Let us say a person goes to your office as a client. is it better for them to ask you a question, or is it better for them just to come before you and you tell them what you see? How does that work?
There are times where I just talk, and, then they could ask me their question afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Or I could be talking, they could ask a question in between. That's how it normally is. It's usually I do the talking. But on radio, I would like them to ask a question sometimes. I'll give you an example. This just recently happened, and it's a true story. I had a dream, and I had a dream. I was leaving right before I went to New York. I think it was several weeks ago, and I had this dream. And in the dream, I was eating at this Wings and Curls restaurant.
Okay.
And there were these people there, and they were going to a funeral. And one of the person's name was Shirley. She's coming on my radio show to tell her story. And I said, don't drive, they were driving some green Taurus car, and the car got into a major accident and totaled. And when I woke up, this is reality now, my husband said to me, Jill, what were you dreaming? All you kept saying was, save them, the car's on fire. So the next day, I took my daughter to Wings and Curls, and I haven't been there in like 19 years. And it's on Hollywood Boulevard.
Mm-hmm.
And we walked in, and 4 tables away from me, there were 4 women. And those are the women and this is reality. This is not the dream now.
Yes.
I have chills right now because I still can't believe this really happened. And so I look at these women, and I said to my daughter, who's 11 years old, I said, remember the dream Mommy told you? These are the women in my dream. And I said, I have to go over and talk to them. And she said, please, Mom, don't embarrass me.
Right.
And I got up, and I went over, and I said, is your name Shirley? And she said, yes. I said, are you driving a green Taurus? She said, no, my friend Linda is. I said, please don't drive that car. Are you going to a funeral? She said, yes, we're making our reservations now. I said, please don't drive that car. She goes, who are you? I said, you won't believe this. I had a dream. You guys were in my dream, and that car got totaled. She goes, what's your name? I said, Geraldine. She started screaming in the restaurant. She says, I'm from Georgia, so is my other friend. The other 2 are from Miami. We're on our way to a funeral in Jacksonville. She said, I just told my friend in church about you, that I called into your radio show several years ago, and I mentioned my name, I mentioned my birthday. You said, hang up and go to the hospital. And you saved my life, and I wanted to meet you one day. Is that amazing, Josh?
Jill, that's a great story, yeah. So
Isn't that a great story?
Those women did not drive their car? You prevented an accident? Is that it?
No. They made their husband, the girl who lived in Miami,
yes,
made her husband come pick up the car. She didn't want to drive it, and they were going to rent a car to go to Jacksonville. Now, in reality, if I never went there, I would have never met them.
Yes.
They would have gone, I don't know if they would have gone in the accident, and I would have never known about it.
Right.
But the amazing part is she was just talking about me to her friend in church, saying how she was talking about me and how I saved her life several years ago.
Yes.
And I guess it was brought back into my life to save her life again. That's what I could think about it. But I still get chills telling this story because I couldn't sleep till 2 o'clock in the morning. Not like, I've solved murder cases. I've predicted so many marriages. I predicted many things in my life. But this was like a deja vu moment, Yes. And a lot of people out there have deja vu moments where you could meet somebody and you say, God, I know that person. And you never met them before in your life. You could have met them in your dreams or another life. And it's, people should just pay attention. Or in your dreams, too. I always tell everyone, write your dreams down. Date it. You never know. Those dreams could be reality, or someone's talking to you from, I believe heaven's right next to you. So someone could be, a family member, a friend, an animal could be in your dream giving you messages.
I see. Now, let me ask you a question. Have you ever approached people with information that you had to offer and they were resistant? They thought, oh, no, we can't listen to this. This is from the devil, that they don't want to listen to you? Do you run across that?
Well, when Lifetime Television was doing My Life on Lifetime,
yes.
and Melissa Etheridge, the singer, was narrating the whole show, the producers of Lifetime came to Florida, and they wanted to pick out 100 people to interview to come on Lifetime TV.
Yes.
And we were going to, and I used to save all the invitations that I get of all the marriages that I've been predicting. And we were going through invitations. It took 4 days. We had to go through invitations, and we had to go through my appointment books to call them. And this one woman, I'll never forget, she says, Miss Dahne, I would love to come on Lifetime, but no one knows that you predicted my marriage, right? Because it's very Catholic. So I remember when I did go and I went to her wedding, she said, please don't tell anybody you're Jill Dahne or you're psychic. And I said, don't worry, my name's Susan. And I did TV in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, right before her wedding. It was the day before. I told them I'm coming up, and I did TV. The next day, I had my sunglasses on, and I'm in church watching her get married. And all these people were staring at me. And they were all looking at me because I was just on TV.
Right.
And they said, oh, my God, are you that psychic? Can I ask you a question? You're Jill Dahne? And I said, no, I'm not. My name is Susan, and I'm crossing my fingers because I'm in church, okay? And I'm like, oh, my God, I'm lying for her, but I promised I would not say I was Jill Dahne.
Right.
And because, she said her friends thought it's, like you said, the devil, right? So then we're at the wedding, and I think the whole wedding was focused on me. And I had to keep saying, I'm not Jill Dahne, and I'm screaming it out loud because she was all worried I was going to say it's me. And I said, I'm not Jill Dahne. My name is Susan. I don't even know who the person is. And it was so funny. But growing up, when my mother and I went to the Carolinas, and my mom appeared on educational television, and I came on, and the show aired, and it was a live show, and people were calling in asking her questions. There was 80,000 calls per minute and broke their telephone lines in 3 area states. And in the Carolinas, they thought it was voodoo. And when we got outside, I'll never forget, the sheriff came over and said, if you continue to talk to people, because there was like 1,000 people, like when Elvis died, outside. And they said, if you continue to speak to people, we're going to arrest you. And my mom said, can I have ice cream in jail? And I said, you better get to the hospital. Your wife's about to have a baby. And back then they didn't have cell phones.
Right.
So on his walkie-talkie, a fellow police officer said, your wife's in labor. You got to get to the hospital. And the psychics were allowed in the Carolinas.
Well, that was a nice story. That was a good story. That was a very good story. Wow. So is that police officer now a big champion of your work?
Yeah, he came. My mom, they aired my mother again. I went on with my mom the first time. I was a young child, and then my mom went on the second time, and he went on and appraised my mother, myself, and psychics.
Well, that's good. That's very good. For those of you just
it was an amazing story. So but 80,000 calls. She received a letter from their telephone carrier notifying her the next time she appears. They have to let them know the time and date so they could hook up a special device, because she broke the lines in 3 area states.
Wow, that's very cool. That's very cool. I hate to say that's very cool. For those of you just tuning in, you're listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live Radio Network. My guest is the noted intuitive Jill Dahne. And Jill, how can people get in contact with you?
They could call my office at 954-964-3541, or they could go to my website, JillDahne.com, or they could find me on Facebook. It's under Jill Dahne Levy, or Twitter, Jill Dahne, or JillDahneBlogspot.com, or LinkedIn. They could get a hold of me.
Well, that's
or
very
they
good.
can also,
yes.
Every week, I do the horoscopes for the Globe magazine. And when people look at, I do it every single week, and at the end of the year, I do the celebrity, I do my celebrity predictions for the celebrities 12 of them at the end of the year, and the whole year of the horoscopes. And so far, last year, every one of my celebrities, I have to hand it in October, and then they print it for January 1st.
Yes.
And so far, last year for 2012, every one of the celebrities, all 12 came in. And so far for this year, for the 12 celebrities, one of them, Kris Jenner, Kim Kardashian's mother.
Yes.
I predicted for this year that she would have her show on Fox, have a show on Fox Television, her own show, and they just announced it this past month that she's having her own show on Fox. I'm also predicting a TV movie for called The Kardashians. I also predicted for this year that Kim Kardashian would be pregnant, and she is. So that's all under Kris Jenner's prediction, and that's what just came in now. Last year, all 12 celebrities came in. One of them, Justin Timberlake, I said would be getting married by May. He got married May 26th. I also said he would have a smash album that's going to smash out everybody, and he just got the highest tunes on all the tunes with his brand new album. So that one came in. But there's all 12 came in last year. So people should, at the end of the year, pick it up so you could see the 12 celebrity predictions that I do. But also, for your horoscopes, every week I have them in there. And I recommend, if you know where your planets are as well, always if you have 3 planets of the same sign, look up that sign as well, because some people could be a Scorpio and they have 3 planets, let's say of Gemini. They're more Gemini than they are Scorpio.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, Jill Dahne, I very much appreciate you calling in to Here's to Your Health today. It's been a great pleasure. Do me a favor, once again, give us your contact information.
They can call me at 954, which is my office, 964-3541, or they could find me on Facebook. One page you could subscribe because there's too many friends. The other page you could like, and it's under Jill Dahne, Dahne Levy. Or they could find me on Twitter under Jill Dahne, LinkedIn under Jill Dahne, and my blogspot, jillblogspot.com, jilldaneblogspot.com.
Well, Jill Dahne, thank you very much. It's been a great pleasure having you on Here's to Your Health. I hope to have you on again in the future. And you're listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live radio network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane, with my co-host, Hans Kugler. We're going to take a very short break, and we'll be right back after these important messages.
You suffer from degenerative diseases such as high blood pressure, diabetes, fibroid tumors, high cholesterol, genital herpes, or a plethora of other diseases that rob you of a quality life. If so, then visit the website of herbalist Tahuti Ma'atra at dhealthstore.com and open the door to natural healing at an affordable price. dhealthstore.com has over 1,800 products created by herbalist Tahuti Ma'atra, specifically designed to help you heal the natural and safe way. At dhealthstore.com, you'll find everything from herbal formulas and cleanses, such as Tahuti's famous full body detox, as well as herbal teas, extracts, natural body butters, lotions, creams, children's products, hair care products, and of course, sexual enhancement products for both men and women. So visit the website of Tahuti Ma'atra, dhealthstore.com, or call toll free at 1-888-823-9416, dhealthstore.com.
Hey everybody, it's your man Sabir Bey back on your airwaves, inviting you to join us every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the Sabir Bey Show, discussing history, law, and hip-hop. Every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, the Sabir Bey Show, exclusively on LATalkLive.com. You also can catch us on iTunes Radio and R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and now Stitcher Radio. or watch us and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Starlet Quarles, and I'm inviting you to join us every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. for a new show right here on LA Talk Live, The Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People. Join us as we discuss the topics that are relevant to today's generational leaders. So don't forget to tune in to The Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People, every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. right here on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and now Stitcher Radio. Or watch and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hey everybody, it's Miss R&B, and I'm inviting you to come and hang with me every Thursday night at 9 p.m. PST for Perspectives Corner with Rona Rowe Bennett on America Talk Live. Hear and see interviews and live performances from some of our favorite celebrities and personalities in entertainment, sports, business, and the wellness industries. We're getting lifted and we're going deep, talking about life and empowering the champion in us all. See you there.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
And here we are, back to Here's to Your Health. And I am so happy to have as my first guest, guess who? Dr. Tony O'Donnell. Years ago, with A4M presenting data at the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, I asked around and said, who else should I meet there? And everybody says, Tony, Doc Tony, Doc Tony. Well, who's Doc Tony? Oh, KABC radio host show, and a very famous guy, and he's a moderator with A4M, with the forum, and so on and so on. And so finally we met, and I was on Tony's show. And the bottom line is Tony is an author of 10 books, naturopathic doctor, psychologist, psychotherapy, and got more and more like myself due to real life experiences into the alternative medicine field, the anti-aging medicine field. So where are you today? What are you doing?
Well, I'm here with you right now. Thank goodness for that. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you guys very much. You guys are doing an awesome job. Well, you know, I grew up in Ireland, as you know. We're both Europeans. You German and I'm Irish. We do get along. The Germans and the Irish do get along.
Totally. I mean, Ireland is
you still have your accent.
It's a German suburb.
Yeah, it is a German. Not a submarine, but a suburb, yes. And I had a lot of sickness in my family, as you know, Hans. I lost my father, my brother-in-law, my uncle, my cousin, my fiancé to cancer. And I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. So I decided to study natural medicine, and I went back and just got my doctorate, as you know, at 50 to get my doctorate in clinical psychology because I was trying to figure out where it all went wrong. So I wanted to help people understand, you know, what quality of living is all about. And that's what I do right now. I'm doing radio, television, written 10 books, 2 in Spanish, and a new book coming out. And I'm doing KABC radio. But I'm happy to be here with you guys. This is awesome what you're doing here. This is the new wave. In fact, I was watching television the other week, and one of the researchers, talk show hosts, came on and said that people are switching away from television and doing more internet talk radio, such as what we're doing right now. So kudos to LA Talk Live. You guys are just magnificent. So that's what I'm doing right now is a lot of radio, a lot of television, a lot of morning news shows, writing more books, and creating a magnificent superfoods to keep one healthy, because we all need to stay healthy.
That's one of very important.
Very important.
No question about it. Yeah. And I want to come a little bit more coming back on it, you know, like why we got into this field. In my case, my dad was a pharmacist in Germany. And as a young kid, I see him standing in the pharmacy. He's pointing at the glass bottles with the Latin names etched into of herbs. And he says, I don't understand why they're going to all those synthetic poisonous drugs. There is so much wisdom in these natural compounds.
He was a very smart man.
And to me, it was like my dad was saying medicine is a bunch of blank, 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 whatever. And that really triggered me off, you know. And then later, as I went on, in graduate school as I was finishing my Ph.D. at Stony Brook. Every month, every week, we had a very famous professor coming in giving a key lecture, and that was about the biochemistry of aging. And I listened to this guy, and I disagreed with literally everything he said. And after the lecture, I went to the library and looked things up, and that's really I started my tremendous disagreement with Orthodox medicine, right?
Because we know it's very flawed.
Right. And then a little bit later, my mother in Germany, German little round Tootsie Roll, like on beer and chocolate and all this stuff.
Say nice things about your mother, will you?
Right, I love it.
She may be listening.
Anyway, and she came down with diabetes. And then also kidney stones. And they wanted to do the operation because at that time they didn't have the method of, knocking out the kidney stones and
the
so on and
laser
so
that
on.
they have right now.
Yeah. And so on. And I talked to the professor who was supposed to do the operation. And I said, I want about 3 or 4 weeks to strengthen her cardiovascular. That was in her family a weakness. Okay, he agreed. And 2 days later, my brother calls me back. Oh, mother's in the hospital. They had an opening. You know what they do in Europe, right? If it's not 100% necessary, you wait until the opening comes up. Oh, they did the operation fine. And then the next day, she has a heart attack in the hospital and dies. And when Orthodox medicine disappoints you like this, it sticks with you. And
I've had the same thing happen to me. I was a sickly kid growing up in Ireland. I was always at the doctor. I didn't like it. I didn't like the dentist. I didn't like the doctor. I still don't like going to the doctor, and I still don't like going to the dentist, even though I'm much older now. But I was a sickly child, and this is what led me on this magnificent journey, this discovery of trying to find out about alternative medicine. Like you, we had a lot of medication in our home, too much medication. In fact, you didn't need to go to the pharmacy. In our home, all you had to do was look up at the cupboard, and I can still see it like I'm there today, and you had all the medicines that you wanted, and it was very convoluted, very disturbing, very distorted, very confusing for me. And this is why I became a naturopathic physician, kind of unheard of in Ireland at the time. And I wanted to understand why cycle the mind makes some of the body sick, because my father was given a flu shot on a Friday night. He was dead Sunday night, Monday morning. My fiance was given 6 years of chemo and radiation. She died from that. And she had all the trappings of success, flew on private jets around the world. This is Jill, my fiance, who died here in America. I wanted to understand what it takes to be healthy, because traditional medicine, as we know it, Dr. Kugler, as you well know and many others know, is broken. And so you have to become your own doctor. And Linus Pauling, I think he said it best, and he said, every sickness and every ailment can be traced to a vitamin mineral deficiency. And we really have to take a look and take responsibility and live closer to the land and eat healthier, particularly green superfoods and red superfoods, because they're the highest on the DNA chain.
Sure. That's exactly the way it happened with me. I mean, actually, years ago, at first, after I got my PhD and so on, I have sometimes made fun of all those Americans. But you guys worry about your house payment and your daily vitamin. What a nonsense, and so on and so on. And then I started looking into things. And I mean, disagreeing with lecturers. And then when I taught at Roosevelt University in Chicago, right, I was a professor of chemistry over there, teaching the pre-meds. And I had a very aggressive chairman, the chemistry department. He says, well, we have a laboratory, get some animals, we help you pay for the costs and so on, and do some longevity studies. And I did. And there it was. I mean, back to nature is the approach, away from all these so-called modern medicine, things like chemotherapy, now proven as almost total failure, right? I mean, Ralph Moss with his books, who was a Presbyterian in St. Luke in New York, keeping track of the effectiveness of various different cancer therapies. And basically he says, well, people would probably do better if they wouldn't do anything and just improve their health practice.
Exactly.
And so on.
Even Edison said, until man can duplicate a blade of grass, nature can laugh at his so-called scientific discovery. And so we really have to pay attention to what our forefathers, our researchers have been telling us, what our grandma was telling us, because the further away we get from the land, the sicker we become, and the closer we stay to the land, the healthier we become. It's as simple as that. And I, like you, was a sickly child. I didn't like medicine. I didn't like the pharmacy role model. I didn't like that protocol. I disliked the taste of medicine that my parents would give me, but that's what they understood at the time. And, my mother suffered from chronic heart failure, died recently in Ireland. My father suffered from chronic heart failure, died a few years ago back in Ireland. Lost my fiancée to cancer. So we have a broken system. So what do we do? So it's time for us as doctors, physicians, psychologists, to take a responsibility to develop more awareness and to teach people that there is a different, non-toxic, affordable, effective way of getting well and getting healthy.
Totally.
And it's not through drugs.
Right. And most recently, I was expounding especially on this thinking. Dr. Ron Klatz from FOM, right? The president,
great friend of ours.
Magnificent person. I mean, idealist. Anybody can disagree with him. If he knows which direction to go. I mean, and most important part, and it's what I really like about you and about, Josh Lane and so on. I mean, the basic thinking comes from the heart.
You do like Josh? You like Josh a lot? You like him more than I like him?
Anyway, and so when I started writing my books about it, my very first book, Slowing Down the Aging
By the way, laughter is the best medicine, Yeah. Norman Cousins said that, so it's important that we laugh.
Absolutely right.
Yes, it's
absolutely
very important.
Right. So anyway, at Roosevelt University, I was doing my longevity studies, and everything disagreed with orthodox medicine. I mean, and then I met Professor Taraskin, Alabama University School of Medicine. Right?
Amazing man.
Unbelievable. Was my mentor for many years.
Read his books. I still have them. I've underlined every single word, page for page. He really throws a curveball as it relates to longevity and to the way we currently administer medicine. He's way ahead of his time, right?
Oh, totally.
And a big mentor of yours.
Totally. Was a big mentor of mine,
And mine.
And he predicted my longevity studies that we're doing at Roosevelt University in Chicago, right? I mean, we subjected cancer-prone animals to all the wrong things and then all the right conditions. And when he heard about this, he said, tell me a little bit more. And I told him the taste, and he says, you're going to get about 100% in average lifespan. I said, whoa, he's going to be wrong about that one, right? And we did it? No, 96%. And if two of those animals hadn't died, a couple of days later, it would have been in excess of 100%, right?
Right.
And it is so amazing how all this fits together. Taraskin, lifelong health, true lifelong health, a state of homeostasis achieved by doing so and so many variables correctly that could be grouped together as health practices.
You're right. And I've had the opportunity recently to meet a 111-year-old man. He's from Italy originally, grew up in South America, in Brazil. His father was a medicine man, though not a doctor, a medicine man. And he was a raw foodist when he was 8 years old. Now, this is a man that's walking around lively, healthy, energetic, full of life, full of love, full of spirituality, great sense of humor, beautiful skin, lean, fit, and healthy. He has a little bit of arthritis in his right knee. Other than that, he's able to get up from the table. He's able to walk every single day. But he lives off the land, and that just answers the question that you and I have been talking about, that the further away we get from the land, the sicker we become. He was a raw foodist since he was 8 years old when he discovered. He said he lived, this is hard to believe, he lived in New York City for 90 years and never got a cold or a flu. Can you believe that? 90 years, not 9 years, but 90. He's 111, and I expect him to live, I don't know how long. I mean, he's going to be in the Guinness Book of Records, but he looks magnificent. In fact, he was on Oprah Winfrey before she decided to open her own network. And then I had the chance to read the research, Dr. Kugler, of the Hunzas, the Vilcaba Indians, the Azerbaijanis, the Titicacans. These are some of the longest lived people in the world. What are they living on? Ding-dongs, donuts, big gulps, French fries, soda pop, pizza, Prozac, Pepsi. No, they're living off the land. They're consuming copious amounts of green superfoods, colored foods.
Especially the greens, no question
without
about
question, the highest on the DNA chain, the first line of defense in the fight against degenerative disease. And now the scientists are telling us that Tufts University from the United States Department of Agriculture, University of Germany in Kaufbeuren and Munich, the United States Department of Agriculture, National Institute of Health, National Cancer Institute, all extol the health benefits of green foods, but 86% of the U.S. population don't eat any fresh fruits and vegetables. Yet the research tells us that if we do, we can reduce our risk of degenerative disease a whopping. This is from the United States Department of Agriculture, not me quoting. They can reduce it by 66% if we consume 5 to 7 servings. We need 13 servings now because the food pyramid has changed dramatically. And I know that you're heavy into green foods and into red-colored foods.
No question about it, right? I mean, many years ago when we used to tell people about the status of the U.S. in overall ranking in the world, and we said they're number 52. I mean, Orthodox people, oh, well, come on. This
How
is a bunch
could that
of nonsense.
be?
How can this be, blah, blah, blah. And very recently, a couple of months ago, even Orthodox Medicine confirmed it. Time Magazine, I mean, they explain it right there. Why aren't we going back into the right direction, right? I mean, obviously we have our system is not healthcare. Our system is disease care.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Well,
and
it really
we've
is.
got to go back to healthcare, right? And, you know, like today, patient goes to a doctor, Orthodox doctor, what are your symptoms? Here's a prescription. Patient goes to an alternative medicine doctor, what are your symptoms? Okay, here's a vitamin, here's a nutrient. Well, it's much better, but wouldn't it be nice if we could find a method to prevent these symptoms from occurring in the first place?
Right. I just was listening to the radio on the way here to the show. We're talking about autism. Which is skyrocketing not only here in this country, but also in the United Kingdom, over in Ireland. In fact, I did one of my papers for my doctorate. We've seen a 700% increase in ADD, ADHD. We now have expanded, which is barbaric and it's totally unconstitutional, un-American. We've expanded the guidelines for kids now as young as 2, 3, and 4 years old to receive copious amounts or massive amounts of medication. And is it any wonder that we have such a problem as it relates to gun control and gun violence in this country? Not one television station has talked about medication and the effects that medication has on the neurotransmitters of the brain. They're talking about getting kids off of these guns, but how are the kids getting these guns in the first place is because they're on massive amounts of medication. And now the young kid, Adam Lanza, who killed himself and fired 154, 155 bullets into those beautiful little angel children, the psychiatrist now, because of the constitutional laws that he abides to and by the laws of the psychiatry, they do not allow him to expose whether his patient or her patient, his patient in this case, was on medication or not, because the patient has died. If the patient was alive, he would be subpoenaed to divulge that that patient of his was on medication, but he's not capable of doing so, and the law is protecting him, the psychiatrist, now that the patient is dead. It's pretty sad, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we see our children taking in massive amounts of medication. Autistic spectrum disorder has skyrocketed. ADD, ADHD has skyrocketed. Diabetes has gone up dramatically in the last 10 or 12 years. Obesity has gone up. So we need to get back. You and I talk about this all the time. I know you're a fitness fanatic. I'm a fitness fanatic. We've got to get back to exercising.
That's
right?
number one.
Lifting some weights.
Totally.
You turned your whole life around when you had your accident, right?
Yep. No question about it. I mean, people have heard about it on this show and on, you know,
right.
my
But
books and so on and so on.
It's very inspiring for me.
Extreme side impact car accident turned out a year and a half to determine that it ruptured parts of my heart. Orthodox medicine told me nothing could be done about it. 4 drugs and a pacemaker defibrillator. I said, no way. I talked to all you guys, A4M, Dr. Ron Klotz, and all my idols in this field.
All your colleagues.
Everybody.
I'm glad I'm your idol, Dr. Kugler.
No, I mean, and I get the feedback, and I applied it. I got these embryonic cell extracts from Germany, a method that comes out of NASA. We have everything here. That is the big problem that we really have. And people are really not aiming everybody at the direction.
Why do you think we have so much resistance?
I mean,
you've been doing this as a professor for years. Why do you think we have so much resistance to all this natural stuff?
You really want to know?
Of course. We know Josh is sitting back there taking a break and drinking his green super, but he's going to turn green. He'll be talking Gaelic and Irish here by the time he comes back on the air again. He'll be a Jewish leprechaun.
Yeah. Anyway, well, okay. Coming back to reality, okay, talking to Dr. Ron Klotz and people from Townsend Letter for Doctors and so on.
Don't forget Dr. Goldman's a good guy too.
And yes,
These are the champions that are helping us
That's right.
fashion a message for anti-aging in America and around the world.
Yeah. And so anyway, so we decided that we have to find a way to get our disease care system back to health care. Big problems along those lines. We know what it is. I mean, the drug companies are buying out medical schools. Everything is dominated by them. I mean, I had doctors visiting from Germany here recently, and there was another gentleman from England. And the very first thing what they're saying to us is, to the doctors that we met here, is, don't you see what's going on in Europe? The socialization of medicine. I mean, like dictators, they are dominating everything. And you guys are following the same approach. I mean, wake up, wake up. You know?
$10 billion in advertising on television in the United States. It's unbelievable. They literally control the networks.
Right. Oh, and your health is our number one concern.
Yeah.
Ha, ha, ha.
Self-care is the key, really. It's all about self-care.
Right.
You know, my story is, losing my father when I was 21 years old, and my fiance, she flew, as I mentioned earlier, on private jets around the world, ate bad food, and had chemo, 6 years of chemo and radiation, misdiagnosed twice, and weighed 87 pounds when she died. And I thought, how obtruse, how invasive, how barbaric. It was not what I wanted to do, and this is what led me on this amazing journey to discover why we need to be eating and consuming massive amounts of red and green superfoods, detoxing, cleansing, cleaning up our biological terrain, if you will.
Non-GMOs.
Non-genetically modified food.
Naturally, quality foods, back to nature,
and
basic
your country,
health practices.
Joanna Budwig from your country won the Nobel Prize in 1939, 1941, proving that bacteria and viruses cannot survive in an oxygen-rich environment. Here we are today on LA Talk Live, and thankfully giving people an opportunity and a second opinion that don't always rush and grab a drug. In fact, I had a fall in Sedona, Arizona, because I'm into martial arts, as you know, and I have a studio with another gentleman here in Santa Monica. And they wanted to cut out my piriformis muscle. They said it would cost me $200,000 for the operation. They give me a 10% discount because I was a visiting leprechaun from Ireland. And I said, thanks, but no thanks. And I use systemic enzymes, massive amounts of omega-3s, juicing, infrared saunas, stretching, Pilates, yoga, all of these things, superfoods, alkaline water, and increased my spirituality, increased my prayer, and I was able to overcome a dramatic injury.
You could have written my book there, right? My book, Lifelong Health, Learn How to Control Your Genes.
Well, I did.
It's right there. I mean,
your book is awesome.
The chapters go right from exercise to, however, there's a little difference. We used to say exercise, nutrition, and so on. Now we go exercise, detoxing. Right, most important.
Get rid of those toxins.
Then nutrition, and then supplementation, different levels, and so on and so on. Anyway, but
this is a great book because you talk here about combining weight training with HRT.
Right.
That you're really into that because you're
totally.
I mean, you lift. Totally. You have the body of a 30-year-old, 20-year-old. You have muscle tone.
At least my girlfriend thinks so.
That's good. I'm glad she thinks that way, and she's probably very happy.
Anyway,
but you do things from a weight standpoint that really strengthens the body because it's about strength as we get older. Because when I met my friend Bernardo Lapalo, who's 111 from Arizona by way of South America, he lifts weights, he exercises, he does push-ups, he does sit-ups, and this is why he's so strong, and he sits up straight, and he doesn't have the Dodgers hump, and gravity is not affecting him. It affects a lot of Hollywood celebrities, but it's not affecting him.
But the strongest factor to prevent cognitive losses, weightlifting.
Weightlifting, yeah.
Strength exercises, But before we even go into other things, you have participated and developed a number of good products. I mean, the green foods, I hear about it all the time.
I brought them from Ireland.
Gets me a little bit jealous, you know. But anyway, so tell me a little bit more about it.
I'd be happy to. When I grew up on my native Ireland, as I mentioned earlier in the show, I had a lot of sickness. I was scared. I don't know about you when you had that accident, when that truck crushed your heart and your ejection fraction was completely diminished almost to where where you're no longer going to exist. I had sickness beyond my wildest imagination as a kid. I was a sickly, weak child. Many of my brothers and sisters were sickly and weak. I didn't like, as I mentioned, going to the doctor. My father was a great gardener. My friends were farmers. I grew up on a farm in Ireland. 10 brothers and sisters, one exceptional child. And I wanted to understand why some people were healthy, why some people never got the cold, never got the flu, and why other people, because we know now from research why cycle of the mind makes some of the body sick. We can also know from research, Hans, that biologically, physiologically, and psychologically, we can affect change in a child, a young boy, young girl, moms and dads and grandparents by giving them the right nutrients, but also, more importantly, by being really positive and excited. And so I was a sickly child. I was weak. I was a decent athlete. I was pretty good in sports, and I'm still pretty decent in sports, and I've always been around exercise. That's why I love what you do, because you walk, and talk, you talk. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do drugs. I want to stay fit.
I tell people I'm too young to. I'm not old enough to drink.
You're not old enough to drink. But I wanted to understand why some people were healthy and other people were not. And that's why I had the chance to do the research on the Vilcab Indians, the Azerbaijanis, the Titicacans, and the longest lived people in the world. And it's interesting. They don't know what Coca-Cola is. They don't know what Prozac is. They don't know what Pepsi is. They don't know what pizza or ding-dongs are these toxic elements that we consume copious amounts of here in the United States. And I wanted to understand, what is it that's in these superfoods. So I had a chance to talk to them, and we know that green is the first line of defense in the fight against degenerative disease. Green foods are loaded with chlorophyll, and chlorophyll is the blood of plants with almost an identical molecular structure as hemoglobin, which is the blood of human beings. And basically what that means is, and I know you know this already, but for our listeners and viewers, is that when you harness the energy of sunshine, it creates this magnificent hue, we call it in Ireland, or energy, not beer, but energy that is full of chlorophyll, full of green phytonutrients that oxygenates the blood, that feeds the skin and the cells at the cellular level, that rev up our immune system, balances our pH levels, and changes our biological terrain, Dr. Kugler, away from acidosis, where most of us are, into a state of alkalinity. And as you know, the pH scale goes from 0 to 14, 7.0 being neutral, anything above 7.0 being alkaline, anything below that is acid. In an acid condition, as indeed most of the population in North America is, we're robbing our bones and our tissues of vital nutrients. And when we do so, we suffer from chronic arthritis and osteoporosis.
So how can people get to your products?
Well, I'm really honored that you
have
would.
A website? Do you have a what's the name of the products and so on and so on?
The products are called, well, I've got 40 different products. I've developed over 200. Radiantgreens.com,
www.radiantgreens.com.
Yes, exactly. And then, of course, we have the pomegranate product, because that's very important as well. These are sister products that are meant to be taken together, because the scientists at Tufts University have discovered color is crucial in the fight against degenerative disease. They call this ORAC, oxygen radical absorbance capacity. So the more green and red leafy vegetables and phytonutrients we take into our body, the less rusting on the inside, less oxidative stress. And you talked about the more detoxing we have, the more weight-bearing exercises, the more we move our body, the more we keep fit and have a positive mental attitude, the more we laugh and have fun, the healthier we become.
No question about it.
Absolutely, it's true. So radiantgreens.com.
Radiantgreens.com.
Or I can give my office number if that's appropriate.
Okay, if you want. Yeah,
sure.
Why not?
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. 818-575-7558. 818-575-7558. Radiantgreens.com.
Okay, so in our overall approach, we will see soon, hopefully with the cooperation of many other organizations. Like next week, I'll have Dr. Murray Susser on here.
Oh, a colleague, a friend of ours. Awesome.
A magnificent guy. He was a key person in pointing me in the right direction, my hard recovery, right? A former president of the American College for Advancement in Medicine, and so on and so on, right? I mean, he was one of the geniuses in this field.
And he's been doing this for 40, 50 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he looks fantastic. And he is a great guy. Murray is a great man.
Yeah, anyway. And so we know in what direction to go. hopefully more and more people will come in, that we actually start educating people when they come in to see their doctor, a very simple checklist. Are you doing exercise? Do you use blah, 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 et cetera, right? And point them back in the right direction, maybe even to my book, right? Antiagingforme.org, et cetera.
That's an awesome book, too. And the table of contents is amazing. You're talking here about basic supplementation. Take your shirt off.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
Don't take your pants off, but take your shirt off.
Well, my girlfriend will probably agree with that one. But if you go into color anyway, I mean, she always says, see, there's a reason why I am black.
Well, there was some golfer over in Europe. He had to take a shot from the water. He took his pants off. So if it's good enough for you to take your pants off, then it's good enough for him to take his pants off. And you talk about sugar being so addictive, and you also talk about telomeres, which I really love.
Yeah, and more. Another very interesting point. A few weeks ago, I was invited to a movie screening. Okay, movie screening? What? So we went there, and guess what? The guy comes in or makes the movie. Big black guy, like power athlete, And who is he? He is an MD. He's a professor at UCLA. He makes a movie, American Addict. He will come out with another movie very soon, showing the ridiculous approaches what they're taking in cancer. I mean, an idealist that we met before. Fantastic. He's going to be on the show here too.
I'm excited. So the more we educate people, we reduce their fear. We reduce their inkling to run and get a prescription, because we literally are writing more prescriptions in America than the entire world combined. In fact, in one of the papers that I wrote for my doctorate, my thesis, had to do with children in Virginia, West Virginia, 30,000 children who were given massive amounts of medication as young as 2 years old. For me,
it's totally ridiculous.
It is totally ridiculous, and it's not what our country was built on. These kids need to be out there, be active, involve your children in sports. We have the fattest kids in the world. We have the most overfed nation in the world. We have more diabetes than the entire world combined. We write more prescriptions than the entire world combined.
And in Europe, recently the doctors who came to visit me, statins are the number one cause of diabetes.
Real problem. Not only that, statin drugs reduce the CoQ10, which we need for the ejection fraction of the heart muscle, because it's a critical nutrient, as you know. And so we have a real dilemma. So we have to educate ourselves. That's why Josh is doing such a great job on LA Talk Live. You're doing such a great job. And you're writing the books. I'm writing the book. I have 10 books out right now, 2 in Spanish, and I have another one coming out here in August. So I'm trying to help people understand what quality living is all about. Most people don't, do they? They really don't.
Exactly. And that's really the nice part with American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. This is the first anti-aging medical organization that allows laypersons to attend.
That's fantastic.
Oh, it's magnificent.
In fact, I'll be speaking at Cancer Control Labor Day weekend right at Universal Sheraton with our friend Lorraine Rosenthal. I think it's the 41st or 42nd year. I'm going to be the opening speaker. You guys are all welcome to attend. And I just got invited to speak over in London, England as well, with my friend Heather Bird, who runs her version of AFRM over in England. And also our friend Dr. Frederick Dawes from Clinic St. George in Germany asked me to come and speak for him as well over there in Baden-Baden. There's a lot of seminars going on around the world. We need to educate and teach people how to be more aware and more mindful.
We will get things rolling. Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
It was magnificent to have you again.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kugler. I appreciate you.
He's got a good grip on himself. Look at this. Next thing he's going to arm wrestle me for dinner.
Glad somebody has a good grip on himself. Thank you, Dr. Kugler.
Hi, this is Dawn Christie inviting you to join me every Friday, 1 p.m. Pacific, for my all-new show, The Dawn Christie Show. Join me as I discuss love, spiritual readings, your purpose, why am I born, what am I here to do. So don't forget to tune in, The Dawn Christie Show at 1 p.m. Pacific. exclusively on LA Talk Live. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream TV, reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi everyone, Chef Richard Petty here to tell you about LA Talk Live's new cooking show, Let's Do Lunch, with me, your host, Chef Richard Petty. Let's Do Lunch launches Saturday, January 19th at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Well, tune in to Let's Do Lunch with me, Chef Richard Petty, Saturdays, 10 to 11 a.m., exclusively on LA Talk Live. We're more than just talk.
Mountain Valley Spring Water, since 1871, has been bottled at the source in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Twice named the best tasting water in the world, Mountain Valley water is naturally alkaline and bottled in glass, providing the perfect blend of nature's minerals, giving you a crisp, clean taste. To start your home and office delivery in Southern California, call us at 1-800-499-9982 or visit us online at www.mountainvalleywaterla.com. New customers will receive their first 2 5-gallon bottles free. Mountain Valley Water, the official sponsor of Here's to Your Health with Josh Lane on LA Talk Live. Oh, your skin looks great.
Thank you.
What's your secret?
Frankincense and myrrh oil by Ancient Essence.
Frankincense and myrrh oil by Ancient Essence?
Yes, it's a beauty secret used since the time of the Greeks and Romans. The spa in Malibu told me about frankincense and myrrh by Ancient Essence, and now my skin is lovely.
Well, your skin looks great.
Call Ancient Essence at 1-800-627-9813. Discover the secret of beautiful skin. Call 1-800-627-9813. Discover the secret. Frankincense and myrrh oil by Ancient Essence. Discover the secret of beautiful skin. Available at fine spas and beauty centers.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. You're listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live radio network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. And Dr. Hans Kugler, my co-host, is also my guest this segment. And we're going to continue with our first segment this morning before Jill Dane and before Tony O'Donnell was on with a very spirited conversation. And Dr. Kugler, so I heard you speaking with Tony O'Donnell about how this subject appealed to you and how you got involved with it, and about the death of your mom because you were not listened to. And if I know it's personal, but so how old was your mom when your mom passed?
Well, she was a mere 57.
Oh, dear.
Right? And it was one of the most distressing things.
Right.
I mean, we were talking about ESP a little bit before.
Right.
I had a connection with my mother that was unbelievable. Right? I was getting in an airplane once in Munich. I had booked the airplane for flying. I'm an airplane nut, right? Everybody knows that, and so on.
And you were a pilot in the Air Force.
Yeah, I was a pilot in West German Air Force, but I got my pilot's license even before. I was so crazy about flying airplanes at age 12, I joined the glider club, where you had to work 8 hours to get one start, which lasted 12 minutes. It's over already, I've got to work a whole weekend again, and so on. But I was signed up in 2 hospitals to give blood because over there they don't take anybody's blood. It has to be like students, young, blah, 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 totally healthy.
That's better.
And so on. Makes sense, right?
It does make sense.
And so we get paid a small amount of money, but I took that money to pay for my flying lessons. And I got my pilot's license, right? I mean,
oh boy.
And I got there, right? And then my dad, coming from East Germany, opened a pharmacy, totally ran out of money. So what to do? So I joined the Air Force, right? Joined the West German Air Force. But before that, I was scheduled to go fly an airplane. And it was at Munich Airport. And a little bit bad weather was moving in. And I talked to my mother on the phone. He said, you know what? I have this strange feeling. You know what? Why don't you go flying the next day? And guess what? There was a major crash of a Yugoslavian airplane in Munich, in the same area where we would have taken off, and so on and so on. It was amazing. Like in Munich, about 160 miles away from my family, I used to, on my way from the chemistry department to the medical school, anatomy, stop by at the post office, which handles the telephones. I put 20 pfennigs in there, and I called my mother, please send me money and baby food. I ate anything. I didn't have anything. I mean, whatever they had left over in the pharmacy, the samples, right? This is what I lived on. And, and while I was making a phone call, I said, too bad what happened with Dad. My mother's already used to that. And she said, well, what did I tell you? Oh, you probably wrote me. Well, what did I write you? You know, that Dad fell and he almost broke his arm and he has to wear it in a sling. You know when that happened? 15 minutes ago. I mean, it's
that's
amazing.
Nice. That's very lovely. That's a nice moment, isn't it? That's nice.
Right.
That's very nice.
And when my mother passed away, it was just like, I was disconnected. I had to be so careful in driving and everything else because I wasn't really there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then finally recognized, like nothing really what you can do about it.
And how old were you when your mom passed?
About 24.
And you were already involved with wellness ideas by this point, were you not?
But what?
You were already on this road to wellness. You were already doing this.
Well, yeah, but it wasn't really on purpose. Like in the military, I used to do heavy weightlifting because very simply, if you were flying a jet airplane at that time and the hydraulic would go out, you had to wrestle this thing. You had to be strong like an ox, right? And that's why we did the weightlifting.
I see.
There were other reasons for that, But anyway, it's sort of like one thing adds to another, bringing you in the right direction.
Yes. Sometimes.
That was really interesting. I almost think it's like a guiding force up there, I grew up in a very Catholic, strict area. 80% of my fellow students in high school became Catholic priests.
Really?
Yeah.
My goodness.
It was a very famous.
Oh my goodness.
A very famous seminary there, where in old. On Monday morning, everybody go to church, and and I revolted a little bit against it, because it was sort of, I felt it was a little bit being pushed down my throat, right? But the older I get, the more I get back to it. The more I work in the sciences, the more I see how simple it is. People look at, RNA, DNA, this is so complicated. I said, no, it really isn't. Look at this. It makes total sense. Look at, for example, the telomere sciences, right? Every species on Earth has telomeres. It's very simple. It's just with a number of different subdivisions. The longer the subdivisions are, the longer is the lifespan. Dogs have 15 subdivisions. No, dogs have, 15, about maximum lifespan 22, 25. Humans have about 54, 110 to 120. The Galapagos tortoise, 75, is about 250 maximum lifespan, right? And the more you look at
Wait, Galapagos turtle, the maximum lifespan is 250?
250.
250.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. With 75 subdivisions and the telomeres, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's this very simple, when man and woman get together, have a child, there's an enzyme that sets the telomeres back to normal. And that is the same in every species. I mean, it must be an intelligent design. It's just impossible that something like this happens by accident, right? And then there was a man I always admired, and I never met him, Francis Collins from NIH, right? One of the original gene hunters. He doles out millions of dollars for research money in those specific areas. And in his private time, he wrote a little book, The Language of God, A Scientist Presents Evidence for Belief. Basically saying this, look, I'm a scientist, I look at the facts, and that's what they are. And in my opinion, this is what it shows, Totally agree. I mean, it's amazing stuff, And then at the end of it, I wrote my book in the introduction, right?
Which book was that?
The Lifelong Health, Learn How to Control Your Genes to Stay Young with Age, which, by the way, is now, due to the help from our nonprofit organization, it's an e-book, right? You can get it for $7.55. Right?
That seems like a good deal.
I mean, it's literally,
a good deal.
Yeah, we just made it spread the word, right? So you go to our website, antiagingforme.org. You can click on the book, you can buy it there and whatever, buy another 100 copy for your friends.
Right, very nice. Make a good Christmas gift too, very good, yeah.
Anyway, and so in the introduction in my book, I explained my miraculous heart recovery, where everybody said couldn't work. And at the end of the introduction, I said, when I learned that everything is fine, we did another echo at USC, and everything, I mean, totally back to normal, and which was actually funny because I went to the Professor Nadmany at USC, who did all the work, with me, very open-minded young man.
What was his name?
Nadmany, professor, yeah. So anyway, and I said to him, Kunlavi, I mean, it's his first name. He's originally from Thailand. He says, I'm totally back to normal. He says, Hans, let's get one thing straight. There's nothing normal about you.
That's nice. That's very nice.
Anyway, so
now, if you don't mind, for the listeners who may be new to the broadcast, so you are a very strong man now. And was it 3 or 4 years ago you were driving a small sports car and you were hit by a truck?
Yeah, I was turning into my health club. Young kid, 560 SL Mercedes, an old car. Young kid.
It was a 560 Mercedes.
Yeah.
And
Convertible.
it was a convertible.
Down.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Young kid had bought an oversized truck 2 hours before.
Mm-hmm.
They were flying high on something.
Oh, really? Oh.
Through the red light, an impact like I had never experienced before. Cops had to cut me out. Paramedics, broken neck, broken spine, brought me to Torrance Memorial.
You had a broken neck?
That's what they diagnosed. So that's why they strap you on that board. They bring you to Torrance Memorial, and it seemed okay. And from the cops to the doctors at Torrance Memorial, I mean, I know some of them because our health center was right next to them. Hans, the only reason why you're alive because you have a lot of muscle that kept you together, right? And so on. So anyway, and they let me go home. Mm-hmm. Everything was fine. And then it took 1.5 years. Dr. Gali, who was on your show, I believe, some time ago. But anyway, in the South Bay area, he does EECP and diagnosed there was something wrong with my heart. And so then follow up, it turned out that the impact had ruptured parts of my heart, left atrium tremendously enlarged.
A rupture means what? What does a rupture mean?
We
there's
don't
a bubble,
really know
tear.
exactly what. But the result was that the left atrium, the upper part of the heart, had bubbled out.
Mm-hmm.
Blood goes in due to the irregular rhythm. The blood cannot go anywhere, so it pushes it against the weak spot, and it bubbles out. Right? Less than 3.9 is normal. Mine was 6.8. I mean, it was bad. And then I had an extreme irregularity, and my ejection fraction, the capacity of your heart to pump out, was only 28%, 50 is minimum, and so on. And everybody said nothing could be done about it, blah, blah, blah.
So you also dropped to 28%.
Right. And that's, we discussed it here on the show. But the bottom line is this, with the help of Tony, right? Dr. Tony Donald and Ron Klutz from A4M and David Wong in our area. We'll have him on the show here too. Murray Susser. Think outside the box. What's inside the box? Drugs, they don't work, and so on. So we put the recovery program together. USC professor worked with me, totally back to normal. And published it at medical meetings, presented it at medical meetings, picked up by medical journals. We made medical history. It's in the textbook, And when you go through changes like this, I mean, you become aware. Wow, I mean, this is, I mean, it wakes you up.
And other than the fact that you have recovered, which is nice to be strong again, was there any new science that because of your illness is now more commonly used?
No.
Were you a guinea pig on anything?
No, not really. The strange thing is really, I mean, we presented that. Orthodox medicine really did not like the idea. And they find all kind of excuses. Oh, well, you just had age-related atrial fibrillation and blah, 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 right? And then, and you're going to be back to the AFib within a couple of weeks or whatever. This recovery is a bunch of nonsense.
Oh, I see.
Well, when the recovery was real, and not only a month, a year, 2 years, and so on, guess what the explanation is now? Oh, it is naturally that there must have been an accident, because if it had been age-related AFib, you could have never recovered, right? I mean, they have an excuse for everything, right? And so anyway, and that is one of the part of the reasons, you go back into all those things. And the bottom line, when we started talking about it in the introduction, I explained my heart recovery. And then at the end, I said, when I learned that everything was okay, we did an echo at USC, and my heart, everything was back to normal, and I passed my aviation medical again, and I get in my airplane, I went 11,500 feet.
You went back in your airplane.
Yeah, and I said, thank you, God, for giving me the brains and the friends and so on to do so, And somebody approaches me and says, why did you have to bring God into that? I said, can I give you your $7.55 back?
Right.
There's some people that are just totally amazing.
Well, everyone has their own perspective based on their experience or, I don't know. But the older I get, the more I realize everyone has their own perspective and seems to work for them. Might not work for me, but it works on some level for them.
Yeah.
And
anyway.
What can you tell the listeners? Let's do some basic stuff now. So let's say there are men and women of your age group listening to you now who maybe have a very orthodox understanding, and now they're ready to move forward. What will be the first thing you tell them to do?
Okay. Because due to the nonprofit organization, the book is available for $7.
Yeah, mention the book once again.
Get the book.
Yeah.
Lifelong Health, Learn How to Control Your Genes to Stay Young with Age. You go to any
Lifelong
website,
Health, yes.
any one of my websites, antiagingforme, forme.org, or Dr. Hans Kugler, Kugler, no space in between, nothing.com. You can click on it, buy the book, it downloads to your computer, right? And by the way, there is, Barnes & Noble has a Nook for PC, which you can download for free. Takes 2 minutes, and any book that you buy as an ebook can be downloaded to your computer. And the nice thing is, if you go somewhere, well, print out one chapter, take it along, right?
Right.
And while you're while you're on the train, on the subway, whatever, or riding with somebody, you can read a chapter, right? I mean, it is so inexpensive nowadays, right? And so the major part is to educate people about how to change our disease care system back to health care, right? And the focus is on health practices. And that's really what we're basically agreeing on. American Academy Anti-Aging Medicine, Townsend Journal for Doctors, and so on and so on.
Okay, let's say we have men and women roughly your age who are not exercisers. They're not enamored of weights. What other exercise can they do to start?
Go for a long walk.
Okay.
Take your girlfriend, take your husband, wife, dog, anybody for a long walk. Start there. And you'll recognize how probably out of shape you are, right?
Yeah, right.
Because, I mean, many years ago, when I was living in Chicago, I saved the life of a very, very well-known but also very questionable, related in terms of background, blah, blah, blah person.
Right.
And the man was told that he needed a triple bypass operation. And he heard me on a radio show and called me, and I went to see them and so on. And I sent him to another friend of mine at at Illinois University, and they said, there's nothing really what this guy can do. So I put him on the spot. I said, listen, I will tell you what to do, but you've got to follow through. And there's no arguments. Okay, yes, we'll do it. So the first time I went out of his house, and he paid me well. That was the nice part. So anyway, we walked. We walked 100 yards. I can't anymore. Okay, we'll walk another 30 yards. We walk another 10 yards, blah, blah, blah. A few more yards. Okay, I'll see you next time. I went home. I let him stand there, right? He waited back and forth. A year and a half later, he ran a mini marathon in Chicago.
Very nice.
Really, that was really nice. You can do it. There's no question about it. And think about this. What is the simplest definition of aging? You would probably agree if we say aging is a constant decrease in the capacity to do things physically and mentally.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, the physical part, it's obvious. If you're doing some exercise, you're being trained, you can do more.
Right.
Look at anything physical.
Right.
I mean, from what your life you enjoy to sex to whatever, right? And so on, you do that. But the more important part now in respect to aging, resistance exercise, focusing on weight and, not only weightlifting, I mean, anything related to exercise. I mean, butterfly and sit-ups and squats and whatever is the strongest factor in preventing cognitive losses.
Right.
Right? I mean, so many people out there, look at them. I mean, they walk around with a cane and they can't even find their home, back. And, and they need another person. And that is so sad.
That is sad.
And when I see that, some of them, I know they're probably 5 years younger than I am, right? And it can be done. And it's not only this. Resistance exercise helps to tremendously enhance gene signaling in your body.
Right.
I mean, the normal methods.
Right.
I mean, there's...
Can you repeat that?
The gene signaling, the gene control, right?
Yeah.
Everything enhanced when you do weightlifting exercises or resistance exercise in general, right? If you belong to a health club, I mean, there's dozens of machines in there that you can use and, all for weight training and so on. And it becomes much easier if you follow our approach, which was originally designed by Dr. Paul Ward, Olympic trainer, the godfather of the resistance exercise, the super circuit training, and so on. You can now get away with only 2 exercise sessions per week, as long a third session is anything aerobic. I mean, go for a long walk, take your dog for a walk, or anything, swimming, playing any kind of sports, whatever.
What's the time frame involved? How much time? Half an hour each time?
About, yeah. I mean, the exercise sessions, you will work yourself into a schedule that you like. So I don't really want to tell anybody what to do, right? I mean, the basic thing is here's 25 minutes, half an hour, right? And so I get on anything, forward pedaling bicycle, a step walk or whatever. I have my hands on the controls. On the screen, it's just my heart rate. I bring my heart rate up in the right range. I go and I continue with the resistance machines. I follow one after another. It really is up to you what you're trying to achieve. Minimum of, let's say, half an hour. And believe me, once you start, once you recognize what you can do, you're going to get going. It's the same thing with the supplements. I mean, people are very often, they're resisting. I said, God, all these supplements out there, what am I supposed to take? I'm supposed to take all of them. I said, no. Start out, look at my book. I have a chapter on minimum start, right? I mean, multivitamins, minerals, blah, blah, antioxidants, fish oils, and so on.
Yeah.
I said, once you start this, and you practice that for a few weeks, you will see improvements. You will see improvements. It will be a turn on, and you will keep going. And they all do. There's no question about it.
Right.
It can be done.
Right.
It's so simple.
Right. For those of you just tuning in, this is Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live Radio Network, and I'm your host, Josh Lane. We're speaking with Hans Kugler, Ph.D., who is also my co-host on the show, and we're speaking about anti-aging and how really it's simple after you just have to get rolling and exercise, weight-bearing exercise, very important.
And if it doesn't, if a book is really not enough, I mentioned that before. I do personal anti-aging counseling,
Right.
fitness counseling with Health Integration Center in Torrance. Dr. David Wong is the head, very magnificent person. We're going to have him on the show here too, right? 310-326-8625. And you can make an appointment, whatever.
That's the center where you and Dr. Wong are associated.
Yeah. Where I mostly it's either Monday, Wednesday, or possibly even Friday, or whatever. And and then they'll see, and we'll take you step by step through the different health practices and maybe explain if that's necessary and so on.
Okay, great.
Why and how and when. I mean, it's really very basic.
Okay, that sounds very good.
Yeah.
That sounds very good. Let us take a very short break. This again, you're listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live radio network, and we'll be right back after these important messages.
Hi, I'm Jerry Bell of the Daz Band in New Birth.
And I'm Brahima Arsalan.
Inviting you to join us every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Time for Jerry Bell's R&B Soul Classics, baby.
Join us as we play some of the greatest hits of soul and R&B and listen in to interesting discussions with the legends of the music.
So don't you forget, join us on the Jerry Bell's R&B Soul Classics. You'll love it. Exclusively on latalklive.com.
You can also catch us on iTunes Radio, R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and now Stitcher Radio.
Or watch us and listen directly at latalklive.com, baby.
Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure.
This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk, baby. We are music.
People, it's Jennifer Tapier from StarCam. You guys might know me from the red carpet, catching up with all the stars, but guess what? We're bringing the red carpet to the radio right out here on LA Talk Live. I'm going live Thursday nights at 6 p.m. We got hot topics, celebrities, and much more. We were featured on Chloe Lamar on E!, Howard Stern, T.I.'s Family Hustle. You know how we do. So check it out on Thursday nights, 6 p.m. All things Hollywood, everything celebrity. StarCam Radio?
StarCam Radio? StarCam Radio!
Oh yeah, follow us on Twitter at StarCam Radio.
Hi, I'm Ro Williams, and I would like to invite you to join GospelRhythms.com every Sunday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our show, GospelRhythms.com Talk Live Radio. Join us as we celebrate Christians around the world in all genres of entertainment, as well as highlight interest stories on men and women who are making a difference and impacting their community. So don't forget to tune in to GospelRhythms.com Talk Live Radio, exclusively on LATalkLive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes under R&B or watch us live on Ustream TV. We are reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is GospelRhythms.com Talk Live Radio on LATalkLive.com. We're more than just talk. We're heaven's party here on earth.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live radio network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. I'm here today with my co-host, Dr. Hans Kugler, and calling in from his office in New York, Dr. Andrew Saul, who is the editor of many of the scientific works of Basic Health publications. They have some excellent books. One of his newest is called The Vitamin Cure for Children's Health Problems. And we're waiting for Dr. Saul to... Oh, Dr. Saul, you on the line?
I'm on the line, although the connection could be better.
Okay, well, actually, I can hear you very clearly. I appreciate you being a guest today on Here's to Your Health. We're showing one of your newer books here, The Vitamin Cure for Children's Health Problems. What is the basic premise of your work?
It is unknown to most doctors and most people that are not physicians that nutritional therapy can be used to prevent and reverse real illnesses without drugs.
I see.
Since most people and most doctors don't know this, our work is to simply show the evidence, the research that's already been done, the clinical work that's already been done, and 75 years of published clinical proof that nutritional medicine is safer, cheaper, and more effective than pharmaceutical medicine.
Well, that sounds like a premise that I certainly know has merit. Can you offer the listeners an example?
Yes. A very good example would be, what do you do when you have a sick infant?
Mm-hmm.
The Vitamin Cure for Children's Health Problems is co-authored by a pediatrician, board certified, with the American Academy of Pediatrics, Dr. Ralph Campbell. I'm Dr. Campbell's co-author.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Vitamin Cure for Children's Health Problems, we give lots of examples and lots of things that you can do specifically. But to answer your question right here, right now, here's one example that I think was particularly memorable in my experience. I had a friend who is a skilled healthcare provider, and he had a baby that was not quite 1 year old.
Mm-hmm.
The child had been very ill in its first year and had had no fewer than 11 complete courses of antibiotics.
Wow.
In as many months.
Wow. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Now, most folks, medical students, nursing students, and even the general public knows that that kind of antibiotic use is not right.
Right.
Antibiotics work very often, but if they don't work, giving more and more and more and more and more and more of what doesn't work is not going to suddenly work.
Yes.
And giving ever stronger antibiotics and having failure actually makes the body weaker. It makes bacteria more likely to mutate into strains that are harder to kill. It weakens the body's immune system, and in the case of infants, it really makes it hard to keep them properly nourished and hydrated because of the damage it does to their intestinal tract. And by that, I mean the helpful bacteria in there. Antibiotics kill the good bacteria along with the bad. In fact, with overprescription, you end up killing everything but the bad bacteria.
Mm-hmm.
So if the only tool you have is a hammer, you tend to see every problem as a nail.
Yes.
Pediatricians tend to rely very heavily on antibiotic therapy, too heavily. So Dr. Campbell and I feel that this should change, and the alternative is vitamin C. And that's what I told my friend with the sick baby that was 11 months old and had had 11 complete courses of antibiotics. The child was under the care of a pediatrician. It was getting proper, intelligent medical care from a compassionate doctor. It just wasn't working.
Right.
The antibiotics were not working. The child still was coughing, sneezing, runny nose, bleary eyes, high fever, skin rashes, irritable, not wanting to eat, not holding down what it did eat. It was just, in every way, an unhappy camper. The friend and his wife never had a good night's sleep. The child kept them up very frequently all night. It was a real problem. So he said to me, could nutrition help? And I said, well, I don't know. But it looks like it's one thing that you haven't yet tried, so why don't we do what Dr. Robert Cathcart and Linus Pauling and Frederick Robert Klenner and other vitamin C researchers have recommended. Try giving the baby as much vitamin C as it can hold. Now, in this particular case, because the child was sick, we expected it would hold more than just a few hundred milligrams a day. And by golly, it's true. Bottom line is this. In the first day, the father gave this 20-pound infant 20,000 milligrams of vitamin C.
20,000 milligrams of vitamin C to a baby under 1 year of age.
A 20-pound baby, 20,000 milligrams of C, that's 1,000 milligrams per pound of child.
All right.
In 1 day.
Yes.
Now, what happened? The child did not have diarrhea, which is the indication of too much vitamin C, loose stool.
Mm-hmm.
The rule is you take enough C to be symptom-free, whatever the amount might be. You take whatever amount of vitamin C the patient needs to get improvement.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's simple enough.
Yes.
But it's surprising because in the case of a little baby, oh my heavens, I didn't see that coming. I figured, like with my own children, it might take a few thousand milligrams, but not 20. Well, that night they slept. Everybody.
Right.
The next day he repeated it and gave the baby very nearly as much vitamin C. And by the end of the day, the symptoms were gone. Now, this could be placebo effect. This could be dumb luck. Maybe the illness ran its course in 11 days or 11 months, and that extra 2 days, it would have gotten better anyway. But the evidence suggests that the vitamin C must have done it, and here's why. Normally, if an adult takes 20,000 milligrams of vitamin C, a healthy adult will be on the toilet with loose stool.
Mm-hmm.
So for a 20-pound baby, not a 200-pound wrestler, but a 20-pound baby, to take that much C, not have any side effects, not have any saturation or loose stool symptoms, and get better, strongly indicates that there's a better way of doing this. And it turns out that vitamin C is not only an antibiotic, it is also an antiviral, it's an antihistamine, it's an antipyretic, that means it lowers fever, and it's an antitoxin.
Mm-hmm.
So vitamin C is useful for making it safer for children to get vaccinations because it's an antitoxin and an antihistamine. Vitamin C is good for children that have allergies or asthma, again, because it's an antihistamine. Vitamin C is good to prevent and treat viral illnesses, of which there are zillions. And all of this with a substance that is non-prescription and known to be safe, since it was first used in very high doses back in the 1940s.
Oh, it goes back to the 40s. I did not know that. And who was the first researcher? Who was the first to use high dose of vitamin C? Do you know?
The first doctor to use what were then considered high doses of vitamin C would be William J. McCormick of Toronto, Canada. Dr. McCormick would give 1,000 or 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C at a time, perhaps by injection.
Mm-hmm.
Following in his path, Dr. Frederick Robert Quinter of North Carolina, a board-certified chest physician, by the way, and Duke Medical School graduate, Dr. Frederick Robert Quinter took it up much higher and would give up to 100,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day for an adult. Sometimes orally, sometimes by injection or intravenous, sometimes a combination of both.
Mm-hmm.
And then following in Quinter's work in the 40s and McCormick's work in the 40s, then came Dr. Bob Cathcart, and he would give as much as 200,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day to an adult. Now, everybody is asking two questions right now in their minds. The first is, there's got to be a safety issue in here somewhere. And the second is, how do you get 20,000 milligrams of C into a 20-pound infant?
Right. Those are fair questions.
As far as safety goes, Dr. Quinter himself said that vitamin C is the safest and most valuable therapeutic substance available to the physician.
Wow.
Dr. Cathcart treated 35,000 patients during the course of his decades-long practice. Dr. Cathcart never had a patient with a kidney stone, never had a patient that had elevated iron, never had a patient that had any of the effects that are wrongly attributed to too much C. In short, the number one side effect of vitamin C is failure to take enough of it.
Uh-huh.
A glass of orange juice won't work. A chewable multiple vitamin with C in it is not enough. Good start, but it's not going to be curative.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as far as how you get that much C down a child, the answer is any way you can.
Mm-hmm.
You can buy liquid vitamin C. That's very tasty, and most babies, including my grandchildren, take this readily and get it every day. My grandchildren have had vitamin C since the day they were born. My own children had vitamin C since the day they were born. And yes, they also nursed breastfed, of course. Another way to get vitamin C down a young child is to take very tasty, chewable vitamin C and crush it between 2 teaspoons into a very, very fine powder. And you'd be surprised how little it takes to get a substantial amount into an infant. Because if you have a healthy infant, they only need a little bit. So you can literally wet your finger and dip it into the powder and put it in the infant's tongue, and because it's tasty, they'll gobble it down. If they don't like the powder, you've got liquid. And if they don't want to take the liquid, you do have other fallbacks. One is the mother can take more C while she's nursing. Or, if it were an emergency, you can have a doctor give intravenous vitamin C. The bottom line here is that vitamin C has broad use in pediatrics. And you can go from one end of the medical book to another and pick up again and again a pediatrics textbook and pick up a pediatrics journal again and again and again. You can pick up magazines that are about mothering and parenting. And again and again and again, you can pick up Time or Consumer Reports or Reader's Digest or the New York Times or the Chicago papers or the LA papers or any paper, and you won't find any mention whatsoever of this important use of vitamin C. I would like to mention I have no financial connection at all with the supplement industry. I do not sell supplements. At my website, dryourself.com, there is no product for sale. It's free, and we accept no advertising.
For those of you just tuning in to Here's to Your Health, we have Dr. Andrew Saul on the line, calling in from his office in New York. Dr. Saul, you've mentioned vitamin C. At this date in 2013, is there a form of vitamin C that you prefer to recommend?
A form of which vitamin?
Vitamin C. Is there a type of vitamin C that you feel you would wish to use now?
Yes, I can answer that. I don't talk about brands or manufacturers, but I do talk about types of vitamin C a lot.
Sure.
And for people that want to know more about this, in the Vitamin Cure for Children's Health Problems, we address these issues, including acidity and buffering and making it more palatable for the child.
Yes.
So there are different forms of vitamin C. The most readily available form of vitamin C is also the cheapest and also the most effective, and that is ascorbic acid.
Really?
Ascorbic acid is readily available by anybody going into any big box discount store or any health food store or any pharmacy or any supermarket, and of course on the internet. Ascorbic acid, vitamin C, will work. There are many natural types out there that claim to be better, but the fact of the matter is almost all vitamin C research that shows high doses work actually use cheap ascorbic acid.
I see. I did not know that.
The biggest problem with ascorbic acid is inherent in its name. Ascorbic acid is a weak acid. It's about the same strength as Coca-Cola. It's not quite as acidic as vinegar or lemon juice. The human stomach handles acid all the time. In fact, your stomach acid is almost as strong as battery acid. The human stomach is used to acid, and adding a little vitamin C will have no effect on the pH of the stomach. But in some people, if they take a lot of vitamin C, particularly between meals on an empty stomach, they will notice some stomach distress. Those people can deal with this in several ways. The first is dilute it. Take it with water and juice, or take it with food. Dividing the dose also makes it easier on the stomach, and it improves absorption. Dividing the C all through the day is the best way. When I had viral pneumonia, I took 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C every 6 minutes. I was awake.
In what form, Dr. Saul?
Plain old ascorbic acid.
Just powder, tablet?
Either powder, tablet, or capsule. The powder has the advantage of not having any excipients or binders or fillers.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are sensitive to them. Ascorbic acid is good because it contains none of them. But ascorbic acid is not so good because you can taste it.
Mm-hmm.
And because you're drinking it over your teeth, you have to rinse when you're done because even weak acids can weaken tooth enamel if you do that type of vitamin C without rinsing afterwards. So you can either rinse after you take ascorbic acid, you can buffer it with sodium bicarbonate, or you can switch to capsules. Capsules have fewer binders and excipients than tablets because they don't have to press it into a formed tablet. Capsules are therefore a very good solution. You can swallow the capsule, you don't taste it, and it will dissolve rapidly. Tablets are good because they're cheap, widely available, and most people handle them well. But no matter how you slice it, all of these are ascorbic acid preparations.
Mm-hmm.
There's a different type of vitamin C called calcium ascorbate.
Yes.
Calcium ascorbate is not acidic at all. So people with sensitive stomachs can take calcium ascorbate without any problem. Calcium ascorbate is about 11% calcium and 89% vitamin C. It is a good source of calcium, and if you're taking calcium ascorbate, you would not need a calcium supplement. If you are limiting your calcium for any reason, you can get magnesium ascorbate. That's expensive and hard to find, but it is out there. For intravenous use, you use sodium ascorbate. Sodium ascorbate dissolves readily, and obviously IVs are a special case. They can only be done by your doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Instructions to your doctor on how to administer a sodium ascorbate intravenous infusion are at my website at dryourself.com. And they're written by the very Dr. Cathcart that we talked about earlier. I also have information on how to make your own vitamin C injectable stock solution. Again, written by Dr. Robert Cathcart, an MD and surgeon.
I'm sorry, excuse me.
So
Could you repeat that? You can make your own what?
A doctor can make his own or her own vitamin C stock solution, injectable solution.
I see. That's not for the consumer to be injected themselves, but for the physician. Okay, I just wanted to make that clear. Okay, thank you.
Oh, that's very good you make that clear. Of course you should not inject yourself, and at dryourself.com we point out very, very clearly instructions provided on intravenous vitamin C are for use by licensed, qualified health practitioners.
Yes, okay, good.
But any of us can take vitamin C orally.
Yeah, Dr. Saul, I'm sure I have a question. Dr. Hans Kugler has a question for you. I'm sorry.
It's not really a question. Actually, in support of what you're doing, it's very impressive work. Years ago, when I was teaching at Roosevelt University in Chicago, a gentleman who very often came and looked at my longevity studies called me and said his son was at the Indiana University. First-year student. He came down with viral encephalitis. He is out. He's in a coma. And that is normally very, very serious. I mean, I had talked to him about Linus Pauling and so on. Well, the bottom line was this. He went to the doctors down there and says, how about giving my son, please give him large amounts of vitamin C? And most of the doctors said, oh, what a nonsense. And one elderly doctor said, listen, that kid is gone. Why don't you make the father happy and just give him some vitamin C? And they scrounged up about 30 grams of vitamin C. They gave the 30 grams of vitamin C, supported another hour later with another 20 grams intravenous, and within 2 hours the kid fell asleep, a normal asleep. He came out of the coma the next day, he is a full-grown MD nowadays. And I talked to Linus Pauling about it. I knew Linus very well. We tried to get it published in a medical journal. Oh, one case alone doesn't really do it, et cetera, you know. But I wrote it up in one of my books, and it is totally magnificent here. What Dr. Saul says makes absolute sense.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, you're absolutely right. What you've described is what other doctors have been seeing decade after decade. The trick is to try it. The trick is to use enough. And of course, the real trick is to use it preventively so you don't get in that situation in the first place.
Right. We're speaking with Dr. Andrew Saul, calling in from New York. He is the health editor for Basic Health Books. Dr. Saul, besides this book that you have for children, do you have another book that you're very much happy with that you'd like to mention on the air?
Well, thank you. That's always a nice thing for any author to be able to do. My most popular book is Doctor Yourself.
Doctor Yourself.
The book and the website have the same name, so it's easy to remember. Doctor Yourself covers health conditions of all ages and all types, and talks about all vitamins and nutrients and other natural ways to get well and stay well without using pharmaceuticals or surgery. Doctor Yourself is now in a brand new second edition, and the book is over 400 large pages. Mm-hmm. So it's been expanded by about 40%. Up to date with all the latest information on intravenous vitamin C, protocols, including the ones that I mentioned on how to get intravenous vitamin C made and ordered by your hospital or doctor. We even go over excuses that they'll use to not use it. We go over ways to negotiate. We go over all the nutrients, provide hundreds and hundreds of references, and we provide safety data from the American Association of Poison Control Centers. In 29 years of reporting, there has not been one documented, confirmed case of anyone dying from a vitamin in the United States. Not one, not ever.
Wow. Dr. Saul, I am very happy that you called in. And is there a phone number or a website you'd like to just mention once again for my listeners?
I would. DrYourself.com is my website. It's non-commercial, totally free, no advertising. At DrYourself.com, there's a list of topics in the left-hand column, or you can use the search engine at the top and find out what you want to know. The website is peer-reviewed by medical doctors who use vitamin therapy. Right. So if you want to know more about this, there's only one way to do it. Being informed, being knowledgeable, means that you'll have more alternatives to keep your family well, and you'll be able to say no to drugs because you said yes to nutritional therapy and high-dose vitamin therapy.
Well, Dr. Andrew Saul, I very much appreciate you being a guest today on Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live Radio Network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane, and my co-host, Dr. Hans Kugler. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after these important messages.
Brooksy, maker of fine laptop apparel, laptop covers and sleeves, iPhone covers, and unique home decor. Brooksy laptop sleeves are made to order and can be custom made to fit your computer. Just send a message with your order telling us the model and the dimensions of your laptop, and we'll make you your very own sleeve in whichever design you choose. Any of the pillow designs can be turned into laptop sleeves too. Remember, Brooksy for all your computer embellishment needs. You can find Brooksy at www.brooksy.com. That's BROKESY.com. And remember to tell them that you heard it here on LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
your skin looks great.
Thank you.
What's your secret?
Frankincense and myrrh oil by Ancient Essence.
Frankincense and myrrh oil by Ancient Essence?
Yes, it's a beauty secret used since the time of the Greeks and Romans. The spa in Malibu told me about frankincense and myrrh by Ancient Essence, and now my skin is lovely.
Well, your skin looks great.
Call Ancient Essence at 1-800-627-9813. Discover the secret of beautiful skin. Call 1-800-627-9813. Discover the secret. Frankincense and myrrh oil by Ancient Essence. Discover the secret of beautiful skin. Available at fine spas and beauty centers.
Hey, shout us out. What's the count? I'm your host, Ferran Dozier. I'm inviting you to join me on WDC Radio every Monday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time as we discuss community topics around health, sports, and entertainment. So don't forget to shout us out. What's the count? On WDC Radio, only on LATalkLive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio, R&B, or watch us on Ustream.tv. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we're more than just talk. What's the count?
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live radio network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. Our next guest is David Buchanan, the author of Taste Memory. And Taste Memory is newly published, and it's about many things, but it also covers the idea of what sometimes is called heirloom foods or heirloom seeds, foods that our grandparents and great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents ate, and that some of these apple trees and other types of fruits and vegetables have been lost, and there is a movement to protect these different varieties and to promote genetic diversity in our food crop. And Dave Buchanan's calling in. Dave, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hello, Josh.
Hello. Thank you for being a guest today on Here's to Your Health. I gave a little brief.
Thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure. A little overview of your book. And so, what is the premise of Taste Memory?
The premise of the book is essentially to write about all the foods that we could know that we haven't experienced for the most part if we're shopping at the supermarket, foods that have been forgotten or to some extent haven't been bred yet regionally.
And I read through your book, and it was a fun read. It was just nicely written, and you talk about my pleasure. You talk about one of the an older man in Maine who helped you. You were at the local historical society, and they were not very helpful. Particularly, they were more interested in Rudy Valley records, which of course Rudy Valley is great, but not everyone's taste, particularly there. And they pointed you to one older farmer who knew of a particular type of apple which you were able to graft. What was the name of that apple?
I was looking for an apple called Blake, which is in the historic record, but it has been lost. Mm-hmm. And I was in conversation with a man named John Bunker, who is very involved in exploring for rare fruits around Maine, and he was looking for this particular apple. So I went to the Historical Society, as you said, and tried to track down this apple through historic records, through maps, conversations with local growers, and we haven't found it yet.
Mm-hmm.
We may we're on its trail, and John has some leads and has found an apple with the same name, same description, fits the description, growing in a collection in England, but it hasn't been rediscovered yet in the Portland area.
And this is probably a very difficult question, but roughly, how much, let's just do apples. How many varieties of apples are there that maybe our great-great-grandparents may have eaten, say, in the 1840s, 50s, 60s, 70s, that we're not eating now? I mean, how much have we lost?
Well, apples are a fascinating example because there was so much diversity in apple crops around the country and across the globe. It's really hard to get a handle on exactly how many because essentially apples were planted in a giant breeding experiment as we colonized the New World. Mm-hmm. So many apples were planted out from seed, and when you plant an apple from seed, it doesn't come true to the parents. So identifying name varieties and distinguishing those from wild seedlings and knowing when a name variety might be the same as another name variety is complicated. So it's a bit of a shot in the dark, but the estimates I've heard are that 15,000 to 20,000 distinct named apple varieties were grown in this country alone.
Oh my goodness!
Historically,
I had no idea. But excuse me, Mr. Buchanan, you just made a statement that if I eat an apple and take the seeds from that apple and plant it, I will get a different type of apple than the tree that it came from?
That's right, because apples, in order to set fruit, cross-pollinate. They need another variety to set fruit.
I see.
Unlike, say, peaches, which are largely self-fertile. So every time you plant an apple seed, you're getting the genetics of that parent apple, but also whatever other variety pollinated it.
Uh-huh. I did not know that. That's very interesting. That's
one reason that there is so much diversity. It says in Maine, the statistic I've heard is that historically farmers grew 400 to 600 varieties of apples. And of course, these days, if you go to the supermarket, you'll find 8 or 10 at the most. So we've forgotten all of this incredible diversity, all this richness, which represents all kinds of different uses, flavors, local traditions, all of these culinary histories, and in my case, I'm particularly interested in hard cider. So all of these different flavors of juices that can be blended into hard ciders.
Well, actually, for the last statements you just made, you actually answered the question I wanted to ask you. Why should we be concerned about this genetic diversity?
Well, there are a lot of different ways to look at that question. If you take it from a cultural perspective, it's because these foods have deep regional ties. They represent long-standing traditions. From a culinary perspective, they add so much richness to our food, so many different flavor profiles. I travel around Portland. I live in Portland, Maine. I travel around town and outside around Maine with friends to collect apples, wild apples, and press them and taste the juices. And they're markedly different. A wild crab can be very different in flavor from a domesticated Cortland or Mac. And they have all these other different uses. Some apples make the best pies. Some make the best vinegars or dried fruits. And some are really wonderful for long-term storage. Some are best right off the tree. So to me, these foods are about there's a richness of experience in them. And then from the other side, also as a grower, as a small-scale farmer and gardener, I'm interested in the ecology of growing and in the adaptation of these foods to a particular place, because some are much more disease resistant than others, and some adapt to drought conditions or to heavy rain. And so it's about environmental balance too.
And you wrote your new book, Taste Memory, and because earlier, are you vegetarian? I mean, are you involved with the environmental movement? I mean, what brought you to this book?
I think I started as an environmentalist first and foremost. I came to food almost second after my interest in the environment, and I've been a vegetarian. I eat a limited amount of meat now, and I try to know where it comes from when I do eat it. Mm-hmm. I prefer meats that have been raised by friends, and my interest has evolved into the more cultural side of this work and the historic side. And I've been very involved with the slow food movement, which I'm sure a lot of your listeners are familiar with. I started a chapter in Portland and have been involved with some of their biodiversity initiatives. And I think that it was Carlo Petrini, the founder of the movement, who said who looked at food as this perfect meeting place between pleasure and activism, and that's sort of my take on it. That we can enjoy a wonderful meal and do something good for the world at the same time.
That's a lovely turn of phrase, isn't it? Pleasure and activism. It's really very lovely. So you are
very
now
Italian, isn't it?
It seems very Italian. So you are now in the post-vegetarian phase of your life. Is that it?
I was a vegetarian for about 2 years, and I still try to minimize the meat I eat. But yes.
And so now that you're working with, to reestablish heirloom brands, is heirloom seeds, is that a term you like to use, or is that not a term that's used anymore?
It is, and it's used interchangeably with the word heritage or heirloom foods. I actually wish that I had a slightly different way to talk about it, because to me these aren't just foods that look back to the past. It's not just about nostalgia. It's equally about current breeding for regional conditions. I write about some really wonderful breeding projects going on at places like Cornell, where plant breeders are working hand in hand with farmers, often for organic production, to try to come up with new lines of foods that are open pollinated in the case of vegetables, which means that they're not hybrid. They can be saved for seed by the farmers. So it's really maintaining the best traditions of the past and working in the interests of the farmer and the consumer first and foremost.
And do you feel that, based on your study in writing Taste Memory, are these ideas picking up a certain amount of currency? Are you enjoying? Are more and more people interested in assisting you and seeing the merit of these ideas?
Absolutely. When I talked about this 10 years ago, I was met with blank stares, and I felt that I must be missing something. And suddenly everybody's thinking about food, everybody's talking about it, and everyone seems to get it. And some of the same audiences that I was approaching 10, 15 years ago about this have come around completely. It's something people are really excited about now.
And you also mentioned that you mentioned that Portland is kind of a foodie town. People are into, I'll use an older expression from a different generation, gourmet food. They're interested in the quality of their food now.
To put it mildly, I can't keep up with everything happening here in Portland. It may not be San Francisco on some level. We don't have the same growing season, but we have very creative farmers here who make the best of the main short growing season. We have, of course, wonderful fisheries, and we have extremely creative chefs. I can't even keep up with all the restaurants that are opening around Portland. It's a lot of fun.
And let's just focus on apples. Everyone loves apples. Humans have been eating apples for a very long time. The ancient Greeks, I think, saw apples as queen of the herbs. What is it about apples? What have you discovered with your study for the book Taste Memory that you really think, oh, I didn't know that. That's just really kind of, I love this.
I think what draws me to apples and pears in particular is their longevity in the landscape. An apple tree can live for hundreds of years, and I write about a pear tree called Endicott, which has been growing since 1630 in Massachusetts, not far from my birthplace of Beverly, Massachusetts. It was planted by Governor Endicott, one of the earliest governors of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. And apples are all around us here in New England. I can walk down the street and find craggy old specimens and that may be uncollected, that may be some fruit that someone once valued and has been completely forgotten. Even in the city, one of my neighbors came up to me last week and said, I have a pear tree, a huge pear tree out back. Will you come and take a look? It still bears some fruit. It's probably 100, 150 years old, and I'm going to collect off of that. I was up on an island off of coast of down East Maine last week collecting some 150-year-old apple trees that are unknown varieties. We don't know anything about them. And I get so excited thinking, here are some flavors, here are some stories that have been completely forgotten and that I can collect and help to preserve. So that's unlike peaches or cherries, which are much shorter lived in the landscape. Apples have this kind of continuity and a sense of history and this opportunity to collect that makes them really exciting.
Before the Europeans came to North America, were there apples that the native populations were using, or did we bring that with us?
No, there's some native crabs, but they're different. They're not that directly related. All the apples that we know as culinary apples originated in Kazakhstan and were carried here with European colonization. And that's true for the bulk of the foods that we know. They weren't here established, with the exception, of course, of corn and beans and crops from Central and South America, the tomato, things that. But even in that case, the potato, for example, is native to South America, but very few potatoes were actually carried to the United States directly from South America. There are a couple of exceptions on the West Coast. There's the Ozette potato in Washington State. There are a couple in California, but the vast majority of potatoes were carried first to Europe, and then from there brought to the New World. So most of the foods that we eat are the product of European colonization.
I did not know that. That's actually it's very interesting. For those of my listeners just tuning in, we're speaking with David Buchanan, who wrote a new book called Taste Memory. David Buchanan is calling us from Maine. Now, working with the apples that you decided to, we're focusing on apples right now. Mm-hmm. What is it now that I'm an older man now? I remember when Red Delicious apples were very popular in the 1960s. Everyone wanted to eat Red Delicious apples. Now you go to the grocery store, and Red Delicious apples are usually heavily discounted because I don't think anyone's really buying them any longer. Everyone is buying the Fiji apples. Am I correct on that? Or the Fuji apples? Mm-hmm. Is it Fuji or Fiji?
Right.
Fuji.
And there are some nice new apples that have come into the marketplace. The Brayburn and Fuji are delicious. And you're right, Red Delicious was probably selling mostly because it looks like the iconic apple.
It does, yes.
It looks perfect. And it does have its uses. Most apples do have their uses. Red Delicious actually has a nice aroma when it's pressed into cider. It's a low acid, so it needs to be blended with others for a cider, but it has some value. I wouldn't say fresh eating is very high on the list.
What was
attributes.
It? Was it the little 5-pointed star on the ledger? Because I remember as a young man growing up that everyone looked. I remember this, that people really thought the Red Delicious apple was just the absolute apex of food, because I guess it looked fantastic. I guess it was an era when there was heavy spraying and people wanted a perfect-looking piece of fruit, even though they didn't really taste like too much in retrospect, frankly. I remember when the organic movement came about, there was tremendous opposition, and there seems to be still opposition, but a little bit less than it was 30, 40 years ago. But the fruit you would buy in the grocery store years ago, 40 years ago, it was awful. It was just tasteless. Right. It was surprisingly tasteless.
And part of that was the effort to reach a mass market. Mm-hmm. Part of it was that storage techniques hadn't evolved to the place that they are today. And actually, I think a Red Delicious, in my experience, is a fairly easy apple to grow. The apples that I've known, the Red Delicious trees that I've known, have been fairly disease resistant in comparison to a Mac, which is highly disease susceptible, so it requires more spray. And personally, I scratch my head why Mac is as popular as it is. But it's hard to say sometimes what brought these foods into the market in the first place. Ben Davis was a 19th century variety that was famous for its poor quality. It was said to be it tastes like cardboard or wool felt. It's a terrible apple, but it shipped really well and kept well, and it was a major export fruit from New England to Europe, partly because they could load it on a boat and it would survive the 3,000-mile journey without any blemishes. And that's part of what growers have been looking for as they move from home production, small-scale production, into the marketplace. So as a grower in the 20th century, you needed to be able to pack up crates, ship them across the country. It's still true. You need to ship them around the world. In contrast, historically, if you were growing apples for yourself in a small farm in 19th century Maine, you wanted apples that you picked right off the tree and enjoyed immediately. You cared much more about taste than you did about some of these other concerns that a contemporary grower faces.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, marketing is certainly important, and
marketing changed everything. Yeah.
Right, and that of course is fair. Marketing is important. Who was it or what group brought the Braeburn into the marketplace? Do you know?
I don't know the story behind Braeburn. I know I write a bit about some other modern varieties like Honeycrisp that are coming out of Minnesota.
Oh, Honeycrisp. Oh, yes, those are great.
Braeburn may have been a New Zealand development. I'm sorry, I don't know the answer.
Okay, let's do the Honeycrisp. What's the story there?
Sure, that's actually a really interesting story. Minnesota I write about Cornell and Minnesota, which are these two programs that evolved out of the land-grant college system, and so they still focus on breeding fruits and vegetables that are very much in the interests of farmers and consumers. And in Minnesota, they have a really wonderful apple breeding program that for northern climates, and they've come up with a number of really some of my favorites like Keepsake and Sweet 16. And Honeycrisp was developed over 30 years, released about a little over 20 years ago, and I write about the breeding behind it and a bit about the investment of time and energy that goes into breeding fruit. That requires hundreds of thousands of crosses and evaluation for when you're trying to get that one home run to produce the perfect marketable fruit. You have to address all needs from the marketer to the taste of the consumer to the grower, and it's a really complex balancing act.
Right. I didn't realize the Honeycrisp had been around 20 years. I just didn't realize it'd been that long. Wow. Let me ask. This is possibly controversial. So we have the discussion about the slow food movement. And now there has been also, over the past number of years, a discussion about eating locally grown fruits and vegetables. And certainly that does make sense. But I'm concerned that some people are using the eating of locally grown fruits and vegetables as a way to somehow discredit or diminish the importance of organically grown foods, which do have governmental oversight and regulation and have kind of meaning behind them. Whereas locally grown, since I'm here in California, and they grow enormous numbers of strawberries right near here, but of course they're heavily sprayed, and it's nice that they're locally grown, but they're heavily sprayed, and I don't want those. I want the ones that are not sprayed. So how do you work with that?
I think a lot of the impetus behind the local food movement is the idea of knowing who's growing the food, and that is a difficult question. It's hard to get to the bottom of farming practices, even in your own community. Mm-hmm. I have been personally certified organic for 3 years, and I actually, for complex reasons, will not be certified this year, and partly because of the paperwork trail that it requires, but mostly because I've been leasing land for several years and collaborating with several other people, and we recently purchased our own farm, and I'm going to continue to collaborate. So basically, maintaining the proper paperwork trail was too complicated.
I see.
And that's actually true of a lot of small farmers. It takes a lot of work just to document all of the information that needs to be documented for organic sales. And when you're a small grower selling at the farmer's market and you get to know your customers, often people do ask, what are your practices?
Mm-hmm.
And to some extent, it's documented. Organic certification is a form of documentation, obviously, but there's still a level of integrity required on the part of the farmer. The inspector is only there once a year. They don't know all that you're doing. They try to fill in the blank spaces and to assess the quality of your operation. But there's always a level of trust that's implied.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when you have that direct face-to-face interaction with a customer and it's a local farm, you do get a sense of who has that level of integrity.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with that. But do you think it's possible that some people would use the locally grown movement as a way to diminish the importance of organic?
I'm not sure. I don't think that anyone would want any farmer polluting their backyard any more than a farmer polluting someone else's backyard 3,000 miles away. So most of the people I'm aware of who are concerned about shopping locally are doing it because they are starting to question the value of the organic stamp itself, and are certainly not looking to forgive practices that they wouldn't condone.
Right. No, Dave. But but you're speaking more on a personal level. I was thinking, would there be organizations, companies that would benefit if somehow they could, in the consumer's mind, create so many different labels that the organic label becomes just one of many labels and therefore less important, and therefore these companies or organizations that are selling product or growing product or manufacturing pesticides or whatever they're doing really is successful in doing what they're doing and diminishing the consumer's awareness. That was really my leading question.
That may be something that you see more in California than here in Maine. What I see around me here in Portland is a thriving small-scale farm scene that is largely organic anyway, and so we don't have that kind of large corporate interest that might try to subvert the local food movement. To me, the local and organic monikers go hand in hand. They're really closely tied, and so I haven't seen it. I can see why you might feel that concern in much more in Los Angeles than here in Maine, but I haven't personally experienced that.
Yeah, I was just wondering your position on that, because after all, writing your new book, Taste Memory, you obviously there's a lot of research involved, and I was wondering if that issue had been discussed among friends, or if you had read articles on it by authors you respected, and if they had a perspective. Michael Pollan, whose books I enjoy and who I respect. I've noticed that he seems to be very much involved with the local food movement, promoting it, and I've always been concerned that indeed it might be a way for the people who call the shots to just everything remains status quo, that indeed, or the organic movement is in their own minds, or they try to convince people that it's nothing but a very effete movement for a few intellectuals. And I think that's unkind and incorrect, but I'm concerned that they try to promote it that way.
No, that isn't something I've seen. What I've seen actually is more the intent of reinvigorating the organic movement with local food. The concern that the organic label has lost some of its meaning with the national certification program, and that local is a way to sort of regain some of the traction on the ground level, the grassroots level. So I haven't seen it co-opted by anybody, but I understand your concern.
Yeah, just I was just wondering. We're speaking with David Buchanan, author of Taste Memory. David, where can we buy your new book?
Well, I could recommend that people visit Chelsea Green's website. Chelsea Green is my publisher, Chelsea Green Publishing in Vermont. It's available at any online retailer as well, and so it's pretty easy to find.
Great. Thank you very much. We have been speaking with David Buchanan, author of the new book, Taste Memory, and you're listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live radio network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. Thank you for tuning in.
For more information